Chapter 556. As expected, Hong Zhao's primordial spirit left her body under the protection of demon monarch Night Frost and Tianxian. It would probably take several days for her to wake up. Mo Tiange looked at the three of them thoughtfully. Among the four of them, Nie Wuxiang's injuries weren't light, and she consumed a lot of vermilion bird's flames to break the 10,000 ghost soul devouring formation. One of them was healing, and the other was adjusting his breath. Jing Xingji and Mo Tiange only consumed some spiritual aura, so they recovered quickly. Seeing her like this, Jing Xingji came over and asked, "What are you looking at?" Mo Tiange rubbed her chin and said, "Why do I feel like there's something strange about that master and disciple?" Jing Xingji followed her gaze. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian were talking about something, but they couldn't hear it because of the soundproof barrier. However, both of them noticed the subtle feeling in their expressions. Jing Xingji chuckled. Interesting. What's interesting?" Mo Tiange ignored his frivolous tone. "I've heard that master and disciple eventually became husband and wife. Cultivators like us never cared about these so-called seniority. However, I've never seen a nascent soul female cultivator have anything to do with her disciple, let alone a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Cultivation talent had nothing to do with gender, but because men were superior to women in the secular world, women had fewer chances to become cultivators than men, so there were fewer female cultivators than male cultivators. Because most women weren't good at fights of magical powers, there were fewer female cultivators in the end than male cultivators. Therefore, every female cultivator who became a nascent soul cultivator was an elite among elites. Take Hong Xiao, for example. She wasn't good enough for them, but she was stronger than most ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Therefore, female cultivators who cultivated to the nascent soul realm rarely chose a man with a lower cultivation level as their partner because of their excellence, unless they became Dao companions when they were young. There is an example of this in the Celestial Pole. The Luanfeng immortal couple from the Biyun sect became Dao companions when they were in the foundation building realm. Now, both of them were in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, but Ding Luan's cultivation level was higher than Feng Zhao's. But this master and disciple pair obviously couldn't be. They had been to Yunzhong, and new demon monarch Night Frost had become a late-stage nascent soul cultivator several hundred years ago, and Tianxian was her disciple. As he spoke excitedly, Jing Xingji waved his hand and created a soundproof barrier. He chuckled and said, "Do you recognize it?" "Recognize what?" Mo Tiange was bewildered. Jing Xingji glanced over and said, "We've met that Tianxian before." "Us?" Mo Tiange was dumbfounded. Although they'd known each other for more than 100 years, she and Jing Xingji had only traveled together a few times. The first time was on Demonic Mountain. The second time was to save Tang Shun, followed by Yunzhong, where he changed his name to Jinxin twice, and now. She recalled the things that they had experienced together, and a familiar figure slowly emerged from the depths of her memory. It's him. Her experience in the maze cave left a deep impression on Mo Tiange. That was the first time she faced a nascent soul cultivator and encountered a crisis where she almost died. Afterward, when she was recuperating, she missed the sinking of the South Pole Island. It was also because of that experience that she and Nie Wuxiang could have such a heart-to-heart relationship. However, she didn't see the scene of Tianxian hiding behind and taking advantage of the situation, so she didn't have a deep impression of him as Jing Xingji did. After thinking for a while, she finally remembered. As she recalled this matter, Mo Tiange looked pensive. In that case, his cultivation level was still in the core formation realm 100 years ago. Yes, even if he just formed his nascent soul, this kind of cultivation speed is absolutely top-notch. Besides, his divine abilities are mysterious. "Have you fought with him?" Mo Tiange asked. "Just one move," Jing Xingji said. That sword move of his was beyond Tianxian's expectations, and Tianxian's strength was also beyond his expectations. Qinshi said he was very strong, and Jing Xingji also said he wasn't weak. It seemed that this Tianxian was definitely not a nobody following behind Demon Monarch Night Frost. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group wasn't simple. As the two of them spoke, Qin stopped adjusting his breath and opened his eyes. Seeing him staring at him, Jing Xingji hastily stepped back. "I didn't do anything." Qin ignored him and said to Mo Tiange, "Let's go out for a while." Mo Tiange didn't understand. Qin didn't explain. He dusted off his sleeves and stood up. Seeing this, Mo Tiange followed him. As soon as he moved, the two people on Demon Monarch Night Frost's side looked at him. Master Song Feng was in the dark clouds, so Mo Tiange didn't know whether he was also paying attention to this side or not. Qin glanced at them and said faintly, "Let's go outside." He didn't explain much. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian saw that it was the two of them. Jing Xingji and Ye Wushang didn't follow them, and Qin's natural attitude made them think the couple wanted to be alone for a while, so they saluted from a distance and didn't say anything. Stepping out of the stone gate, the two of them walked silently until they reached White Tiger Hall. Seeing that Qin stopped, Mo Tiange asked, "Senior Marshal Brother, do you have something to say?" Qin nodded, cast a soundproof barrier, and asked, "Do you think Demon Monarch Night Frost's words are reliable?" The four of them hadn't discussed this matter. In any case, they were trapped here and couldn't move. If Demon Monarch Night Frost had a way, they'd just let them do it. Mo Tiange said, "I'm just curious. They put in so much effort just for one thing? Is it a treasure like the Vermilion Bird Bough? Something that could make a late-stage nascent soul cultivator rush here from thousands of miles away was certainly not an ordinary thing. None of the things they got from the storehouse could meet such a condition, unless it was the whole storehouse, but they clearly said they only needed one thing. Maybe, Qin said, "I'm guessing it might be related to the deification realm." Mo Tiange looked at him. Qin couldn't help but smile when he saw her sparkling eyes. He stroked her head and said, "If it's related to the deification realm, we have to get involved. Master is already in the late stage." Although they had deification pills, they hadn't heard of some of the materials needed for this miraculous pill, and they didn't know where to get them. Lord Taoist Jinghe advanced to the late stage not long ago, but he still had 500 or 600 years left in his life. If he couldn't break through by then, Mo Tiange planned to offer her longevity pills. With a lifespan of 1,000 years, it was very possible for him to advance to the deification realm. Even if Lord Taoist Jinghe couldn't use it, they would have to face the deification realm sooner or later. With their lifespan and cultivation speed, their chances of reaching the peak stage of the nascent soul realm were very high. Qin pondered for a while, then removed the soundproof cover. He said, "Let's go out and take a look." The two of them gradually walked away. The white tiger's breath became fainter, and the ghost aura became denser and denser. How could the ghost aura left by 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators be ordinary? Even if they all returned to Ghost City, this ghost aura wouldn't disperse for a while. When the two of them walked to the damaged stone wall, they saw a faint shadow. That powerful momentum undoubtedly belonged to nascent soul ghost cultivators. Upon seeing them, the nascent soul ghost cultivators became restless, but they didn't dare to come closer. They naturally didn't think these ghost cultivators were afraid of them. Ghost cultivators were afraid of the white tiger's breath. The white tiger's breath here came from a real divine beast, the white tiger. Its power wasn't something the vermilion bird's flame Qin she had subdued could compare to. They hid here for a whole day, but these nascent soul ghost cultivators didn't dare to enter, which showed its power. The two of them retreated a little. Qin took out a talisman from his Qinquan ring and drew some talismans in the air. He then said something to the talisman and forced a drop of his blood essence to melt into the talisman. Mo Tiange looked at the talisman and said, "You wanted to come out because of this, right?" Qin nodded with a smile. With a flick of his finger, the talisman turned into a wisp of smoke and flew out of the exit. The ghost cultivators who were waiting were still ignorant. Seeing that these ghost cultivators didn't dare to approach the sacrificial temple, they thought there should be no trouble in the near future, so the two of them turned back. This place was quite far from Xianxing's school. and the current situation was complicated. Ordinary sound-transmitting talismans couldn't escape these ghost cultivators' eyes and ears. A sound-transmitting talisman with sealed divine senses couldn't describe the situation here in detail. If Lord Taoist Jinghe found out they crushed the sound-transmitting talisman and called his 2 senior martial brothers and sisters to come, it would be very bad. Therefore, Qin Shi used his blood essence just to send a message. He wanted to pass on the specific information about this place, so that Lord Taoist Jinghe could lead people to rescue them. 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators in an unknown ghost city. This matter must be reported to the Immortal Alliance, who would come forward and send a group of nascent soul cultivators. There was a secret storehouse here, and with the addition of the White Tiger's sacrificial temple, the Immortal Alliance wouldn't be tempted. Although they were trapped here, as long as they sent a message, they would be in an invincible position. So Qin Shi never worried and let Demon Monarch Knight Frost and the others do whatever they wanted. After thinking about it, Imo-Tinga couldn't help but laugh. When a bunch of nascent soul cultivators from the Immortal Alliance come, I wonder what Master Songfeng will think. Qin Shi walked leisurely with his hands clasped behind his back and said with a smile, I learned this talisman technique recently from the Ice Palace in the Returning Ruins Sea. I think Master Songfeng doesn't know this talisman technique exists in this world. He paused for a moment and said, Master has already advanced to the late stage of the nascent soul realm. With us here, Master Songfeng will suffer a lot this time. However, he's been in the late stage of the nascent soul realm for hundreds of years. His divine power is powerful, so he probably won't be able to stay. Imo-Tinga also understood that nascent soul cultivators weren't easy to kill, especially cultivators in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. Until now, there had never been a precedent of them being killed by others. They could be seriously injured or abandon their bodies, but as long as their nascent souls existed, they could escape. To kill a great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, one not only needed an absolute advantage, but also a lot of luck. Thinking up to this point, she sighed inwardly. In that case, before Master Songfeng passed away, Nie Wuxiang had to avoid him. She actually hoped that Nie Wuxiang could catch up and kill Master Songfeng, but the possibility was too low. When Master Songfeng was in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, Nie Wuxiang hadn't been born yet. In the few hundred years he had left, it would be too difficult for Nie Wuxiang to reach his current realm. Let me out. Fei Fei's impatient voice rang in her ears. Did you hear me? Imo-Tinga had no choice but to open the spiritual beast bag, and Fei Fei immediately scuttled out. Isn't it good for you to cultivate in the spiritual beast bag? Fei Fei sniffed and was overjoyed. Hey, you want me to return empty-handed after entering the White Tiger sacrificial temple? Imo-Tinga shook her head and said, Don't be delusional. Even we can't get close to that White Tiger. At most, you can absorb some of its breath. Huh. Fei Fei jumped onto her shoulder and said proudly, That's you guys, not me. Imo-Tinga was surprised. You have a way? Fei Fei shook its head and said proudly, Have you forgotten my talent? Chapter 557. Fei Fei could coexist peacefully with all demonic beasts and could make people clear-minded, which happened to be the nemesis of White Tiger's breath. Moreover, Fei Fei belonged to the metal element, which was compatible with White Tiger's breath. Imo-Tinga said curiously, What a coincidence! Is this White Tiger's fate prepared for you? Fei Fei proudly raised its head, but Imo-Tinga slapped it down. You're so lazy. Walk by yourself. Fei Fei whimpered and wanted to protest, but seeing that Imo-Tinga ignored it and walked away, it could only obediently put away its tail and follow them. Imo-Tinga shook her head as she walked. I'm afraid Jing Xingji will be disappointed. If Fei Fei was right, this White Tiger's fated chance would really belong to it. Qin Shi smiled and said, He can be said to be unlucky, but in fact he also had countless fated chances to reach this step. He can be said to be lucky, but he always misses big fated chances. For example, the Yang spiritual bead and the vermilion bird bow. However, fated chances couldn't be helped by others. If it didn't belong to Jing Xingji, they couldn't do anything. The two people and the beast soon returned. Jing Xingji saw that they didn't look the same, so he was suspicious for a while before he continued to concentrate on cultivating. He wasn't injured, so what he was doing now was absorbing White Tiger's breath. Every time Imo Tinga stopped cultivating, she would see him sitting cross-legged on the ground with his still water sword floating in front of him. From time to time, spots of light flashed on the sword. It was the White Tiger's breath being absorbed into the sword and transforming its sword aura. She once told her about Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji's sword was the nameless ancient sword he obtained together with him. At that time, Jing Xingji was still the outstanding disciple of venerable swordsman Zhongguang of Gujin sect. He was proud of his life and didn't want to be like other sword cultivators who casually refined a natal flying sword and then slowly improved it. Jing Xingji was overjoyed when he obtained this nameless ancient sword, so he refined it into his natal flying sword. The sword art he obtained with this sword was called the secular sword art. It had a total of 3 killing moves, named gain and loss, sorrow and joy, and withering and flourishing. The power of these 3 moves was earth-shattering. Of course, the so-called earth-shattering was after the great accomplishment. The great accomplishment in ancient times was not the nascent soul of today. Even if Jing Xingji had formed the nascent soul, he could only be called a minor accomplishment. Seeing how focused Jing Xingji was on absorbing the White Tiger's breath, Imo Tinga prayed in her heart. She hoped seeing the White Tiger this time would also bring him some fated chances, instead of watching helplessly as another great fated chance slipped away. As for herself, she didn't have any metal-attributed techniques. It would be best if she had some, but if she didn't, she wouldn't force it. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Hong Xiao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Sky Xian hurried forward. Mo Tiange and the other 3 also stopped cultivating and stared at them. City Lord, speak slowly. Night Frost Demon Monarch pressed down on her shoulder. Hong Xiao stabilized her breathing and slowly said, I pretended to be a remnant soul and floated into Ghost City. This Ghost City was extremely large. According to Hong Xiao, it was several times larger than the largest city in Yinzhong. In the Ghost City, there were unconscious remnant souls, spirit ghosts who only retained their memories, and nascent soul ghost cultivators who had formed ghost infants. There was a rumor in the secular world that in the human world, there was an unknown ghost city called Fengdu. After people died, their souls would be captured and brought to Fengdu to be judged by a ghost emperor before they would be reincarnated. For cultivators like them, this was merely a legend. They traveled all over the world, but they'd never seen a ghost city. It was already pretty good if they could meet a few souls whose memories hadn't been erased. This ghost city, on the other hand, gathered many kinds of ghosts. It was very similar to the legendary ghost city, Fengdu. The highest ruler of the ghost city was called the Ghost Venerable. No one could accurately tell what his cultivation level was. Under the Ghost Venerable, there were 68 nascent soul ghost emperors who ruled the ghost city. There were even hundreds of millions of ghosts in the ghost city. The news that Hong Xiao brought back was sensational. When she finished speaking, the 8 people present were all silent. She was even more certain that his decision was correct. If he didn't inform the Immortal Alliance about such a ghost city, how could they escape? At the same time, the atmosphere in White Tiger Sacrificial Temple became unstable. Demon Monarch Night Frost Group no longer brought up the matter of cooperation. Mo Tinga's group of 4 also remained silent. Master Song Feng didn't move from beginning to end. Half a month later, Hong Xiao's injuries were healed, and Demon Monarch Night Frost Group began to move. Fellow Taoists, before leaving, Demon Monarch Night Frost came to them. The 4 people stood up to greet him. Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression was cold, but her words were polite. The 3 of us are determined to fight our way out of the encirclement. Are you willing to come with us? She said without hesitation. There are so many ghost cultivators outside. The 4 of us cherish our lives, so we won't go with you. Demon Monarch Knight Frost nodded. She knew they wouldn't attack together, so she just mentioned it casually. Fellow Taoist Knight Frost, Jing Xingji said with a smile, there's so many nascent soul ghost cultivators outside. Isn't it too risky for the three of you to go out like this? Demon Monarch Knight Frost paused. A ripple appeared on her frosty face, but she immediately calmed down. The three of us are devil cultivators. The longer we stay here, the more our cultivation levels will be consumed. It's better to fight while our strength hasn't been damaged yet. After saying that, she didn't give them a chance to ask again. Goodbye. After watching Demon Monarch Knight Frost leave with Tian Xian and Hong Xiao, the four of them sat down again. Qin Shi flicked his finger, casting a soundproof barrier. What do you want to say? What do they get from the Ghost City? Jing Xingji asked, tapping the hilt of his sword. This was an affirmative statement, not question. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left the sacrificial temple so decisively. If they stayed here, Demon Monarch Knight Frost only needed to use some devil aura to protect the two people from being burned by White Tiger's breath. If they left, they would die. Qin Shi looked at Nie Wuxiang, then looked at Jing Xingji. He said, do you want to do something? Of these two people, one was lost in thought, and the other's eyes were darting around. It seemed neither of them wanted to end things like this. Jing Xingji chuckled when he heard what Qin Shi said. He patted Qin Shi's shoulder and said, are you willing? Maybe you can really get some treasure from them and leave. Qin Shi glanced at the white tiger in the middle. So you're giving up? Jing Xingji took his hand back and sighed. I don't want to give up either way, but I have to make a choice. Did he expect him to obtain White Tiger's inheritance, then go on a killing spree and leave confidently? He wasn't a greenhorn who daydreamed all day and wanted to get fated chances. He had to save his life first. Ignore them, Qin Shi said. I said I'll call for reinforcements. We'll just wait here. He then stared at Jing Xingji. Mo Tiange didn't need to say anything, and he didn't need to care about Nie Wuxiang. His words were a warning to Jing Xingji not to act recklessly. Jing Xingji still tried to defend himself. Can your summoning talisman get out? Even if it can, how can you explain the situation here? You don't need to worry about that. I have a way. Qin Shi said faintly, then closed his eyes and meditated without saying anything else. He lost a drop of blood essence, and it would take him a lot of effort to recover. Seeing that Mo Tiange was also staring at him, Jing Xingji helplessly spread his hands and continued to cultivate. If they didn't want to leave, then so be it. In any case, he wasn't Master Songfeng and had no enmity with the people of the Immortal Alliance, so he wasn't afraid they would kill him first. The four people fell silent again. Mo Tiange said to Fei Fei, can you really take White Tiger away? Fei Fei wagged its tail and raised its head. Just wait and see. After Demon Monarch Knight Frost left, it was very quiet outside. If they used force to break out of the encirclement, it was impossible for there to be no movement at all. It seemed their guess was right. Hong Xiao obtained some treasure from Ghost City. However, Mo Tiange felt strange. Why did Master Songfeng just stand by and watch like them? They did it because they had a backup plan, but what about Master Songfeng? Even if he safely waited until the people of the Immortal Alliance broke into Ghost City, how could he guarantee his own safety? For him, the people of the Immortal Alliance were more dangerous than those ghost cultivators. As she thought about this, there seemed to be a commotion outside. She turned around and saw the other three people open their eyes. What's going on? Mo Tiange asked in a low voice. After a while, he said, someone's coming. Could it be the people of the Immortal Alliance? The four people were a bit nervous. If it was the people of the Immortal Alliance, they would be saved. But soon, the four people were disappointed. Among the three people, the leader was in the late nascent soul realm and was a devil cultivator. Obviously, Demon Monarch Knight Frost Group had returned. Demon Monarch Knight Frost Group came back in a very sorry state. Hong Xiao's tube skirt was almost covered in blood, and there was a shocking black mark on her white waist. Tianxian looked a bit better. His fake hand, which had been hidden in his sleeve, also had a black mark. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's face was pale. He had consumed a lot of devil aura. As soon as they came in, Demon Monarch Knight Frost gave them and Master Song Feng a warning look and ordered Tianxian, take out the devil breath pill. Then she waved the purple satin to isolate the white tiger's breath and put Hong Xiao inside. When she finished, Tianxian still didn't move. Demon Monarch Knight Frost turned her head and looked at him. What? Tianxian said faintly. Shuang even if we can save her, how can we take her out? Demon Monarch Knight Frost was stunned. She slowly stood up and stared at him. You wanted to give up on Hong Xiao? Tianxian looked away and said, we don't have any strength left. Demon Monarch Knight Frost didn't say anything. She just stared at Tianxian in silence. It wasn't until Hong Xiao coughed up blood that her attention was pulled back. Castellan. Hong Xiao looked up with a sad but firm expression. You guys should go. My injuries can't be healed. Don't say that. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's expression immediately became firm. She looked at Tianxian and said, Devil Breath Pill. Tianxian didn't move. Demon Monarch Knight Frost said again, Devil Breath Pill. Her voice was still calm, but it became more and more determined each time. Tianxian finally sighed, took out a pill bottle, and tossed it over. Demon Monarch Knight Frost caught it and was about to take out the pill when the sky above her suddenly darkened. A powerful force enveloped her. She waved her hand, and an icy devil aura rose from her sleeve to resist that force. She was about to turn her head when she heard Hong Xiao shout, Castellan, and her whole body went numb. Hong Xiao looked behind her in horror, her lips trembling. Young Master. Chapter 558. Above Night Frost Demon Monarch's head was an upside-down cup-shaped Dharma treasure. It emitted a black light that enveloped her. Under the black light, Night Frost Demon Lord was unable to move. The hand holding the pill bottle was tilted. Hong Xiao dazedly looked at the two people in front of her and suddenly shouted with all her might, Gongzi, what are you doing? Sky Xian's gaze was heavy. He didn't even look at Hong Xiao. He stretched out his silver fake hand and slapped Night Frost Demon Monarch's back several times. Unable to move, Night Frost Demon Lord could only endure it. After the final palm strike, the demonic aura in her body choked, and her cultivation was sealed just like that. Mo Tinga's group of 4 was dumbstruck as they watched this scene unfold. They previously thought of all kinds of possibilities, but they never expected there would be such a change. What is he doing? Mo Tinga asked in a low voice. Being in the sacrificial temple, the breath of the white tiger had a suppressive effect on the devil chi. Moreover, there were ghost cultivators surrounding him like an iron bucket. Even if he had extraordinary magical powers, how would he be able to break through? Just now, the 3 of them had traveled together and returned with serious injuries. Under such circumstances, he still attacked Demon Lord Nightfrost. Did he really want to be trapped here forever? Moreover, they were not only master and disciple, but also lovers. She shook his head and didn't answer. Why? Fiend Lord Nightfrost asked softly after a while. She tried to control her emotions, but her voice still trembled. Because I hate you. Tianxian said word by word. Many emotions flashed across his face. One moment he was in love, the next moment he was angry, the next moment he was lost, the next moment he was sad. Hate? Demon Lord Nightfrost repeated with a blank expression. Young Master, Hong Xiao shouted sternly. When has the city lord wronged you? Without a city lord, why are you here with your cultivation? Tianxian stared at Hong Xiao and sneered. That's right, she didn't let me down, but so what? What does it have to do with me hating her? Hong Xiao was stunned. She didn't understand. Since he didn't apologize, why did he hate her? She had a pure mind. Although she was a maid, she had never suffered the slightest bit, so she did not know the complexity of people's hearts. I hate you. Tianxian looked indifferent. Why did you bring me back? I hate you. Why are you with me? I hate you. Why can't you forget Yi Sha? When he said the last sentence, his eyes were filled with rage and intense hatred. Yi Sha? Mo Tinga's curiosity was piqued when she heard this name. What did Yi Sha have to do with Yi Xuan? Could it be Yi Sha? Night Frost Fiend Lord said. Yi Sha is you. Why must you? I'm not Yi Sha. Tianxian was furious. His pale blue face was undulating. After taking a deep breath, he said calmly, I have long lost the memory of my previous life. What does Yi Sha have to do with me? He sneered. You think I'm Yi Sha, but have you ever thought that I don't want to be Yi Sha? Night Frost Demon Monarch closed his eyes and shook his head. I didn't expect. Of course you wouldn't expect it. Tianxian looked at her coldly. This devil cultivator of the late Yuan dynasty, one of the 3 devil monarchs in Yunzhong, looked so weak from the back. You found me on your own accord, accepted me as your disciple, and treated me as Yi Sha. Do you think I would be grateful to you? In that case, your feelings are all fake. No. Tianxian stared at her back. Tenderness flashed across his eyes. Everything I said to you is true. It has always been true. But you only have Yi Sha in your heart. You only treat me as Yi Sha. His voice was so sad, as if the betrayer was Night Frost Demon Monarch and not him. Just because of this, Night Frost Demon Monarch couldn't help but laugh. Just because of this, you want to kill me? Tianxian didn't answer. He said indifferently, you are one of the 3 devil monarchs. You control Night Owl City. You are one of the top cultivators in Yunzhou. You are too amazing. You treat me as Yi Sha and keep me by your side. I can only be Yi Sha and be your pet. What do the people in the city, Lord Manor, think of me? What do the cultivators in Yunzhong think of me? They are very respectful in front of me, but they whisper behind my back. Just like what Hong Xiao said, without you, how can I achieve my cultivation? That's what everyone thinks. They treat me as your male pet. So what? His gaze landed on the void. Night Frost Demon Monarch said softly, I know I'm not. You know I'm not. Isn't that enough? It's not you. Of course you don't know how painful this feeling is. Tianxian shouted. Night Frost Demon Monarch shut his mouth tightly and didn't say a word. I love you, he said. His pale blue face was warm, but it slowly turned cold. But I'm not Yi Sha. I can't stand you thinking of Yi Sha when you look at me. He continued, from the beginning to the end, the person you love is only Yi Sha. Yi Sha is dead. You tried your best to find his reincarnation. You can't stand Yi Sha leaving you. After a few hundred years, you found me and brought me back to Night Owl City. You worked hard for the mutant blood in my body. Whatever Yi Sha likes, you make me do it. Whatever Yi Sha hates, you never let me see. But I don't have the memories of my previous life. I might not like what he likes, and I might not hate what he hates. I'm completely different from Yi Sha, but you ignore me. I want you to really look at me. Not Yi Sha, but me. After a long silence, Night Frost Demon Monarch finally said, When did you start to want to kill me? Tianxian showed a bitter smile. Before this, I couldn't make up my mind. Just now, as luck would have it, Night Frost Demon Monarch said sadly, You wanted to kill me for a long time. Otherwise, you would have let me know you have this kind of magic weapon. After a moment of silence, Tianxian said, Maybe. Do you have anything else to say? The truth was in front of him, but Night Frost Demon Monarch calmed down. Tianxian's expression was complicated. In the end, he shook his head. No, then let's do it, Night Frost Demon Monarch said faintly. You'll be more confident if you go alone. Tianxian clenched his teeth and slowly raised his silver fake hand. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That's strange. He killed Night Frost Demon Monarch. Isn't he afraid of being killed by us alone? Jing Xingji said. Qin, she said, I fought him before. He has a strange divine ability. His body can turn into invisible devil aura, so he's not afraid of being hurt. Nie Wushang's eyes brightened. There's actually such a divine ability? Yes, he can't beat me, but I also can't hurt him. Seeing Tianxian slowly raising his hand, Hong Xiao suddenly pounced on him. The double-edged dagger in her hand spun quickly and ruthlessly stabbed at Tianxian. Tianxian's eyes turned cold. Hong Xiao had just jumped when he waved his fake hand and ruthlessly slapped her head, smashing her nascent soul. Mo Tinga felt a chill in her heart. This Tianxian seemed to like this kind of method very much. Huaziki and Zhongxi's corpses were also crushed like this. Even their nascent souls were crushed without leaving anything behind. Red Silk. Demon Lord Night Frost was alarmed when he saw this scene. Hong Xiao screamed. The light in her eyes disappeared, and she fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Looking at Hong Xiao's bleeding corpse, Night Frost Demon Monarch was stunned. It took her a long time to regain her composure. Tian Xian said indifferently, I didn't expect she'd be willing to risk her life for you. I underestimated her. Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled sadly. It turns out I'm not a failure after all. Someone's willing to die for me. She then closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She suddenly threw the pill bottle in her hand and made a hand seal. A devil aura appeared behind her and shook Tian Xian away. You! Tian Xian was shaken and took several steps back. He stared at her in shock. Night Frost Demon Monarch slowly turned around and stared at him fixedly. You weren't immobilized? Night Frost Demon Monarch stretched out her hand, and the goblet magic weapon fell into her hand. She looked at it and sighed. The illusory immobilization goblet. It turns out it fell into your hands, but you never told me. Then she looked at him and said faintly, You underestimate late nascent realm cultivators. This goblet is indeed a rare treasure, but it's still not enough to immobilize a late nascent realm cultivator. Tian Xian was silent for a while and asked, Are you going to kill me? Night Frost Demon Monarch didn't answer. She said, You said I ignored your wish, but why didn't you tell me you weren't willing? Was it because I didn't want to listen, or was it because you didn't dare to tell me? Tian Xian didn't answer. Night Frost Demon Monarch continued, That's right. I've always thought of you as Yisha because you're indeed Yisha's reincarnation. If you didn't want to be Yisha, you could have told me directly, but you never did. She let out a long sigh, and sadness finally appeared in her eyes. I finally know that you're not Yisha. Yisha never felt inferior. He's magnanimous and only asks for himself. He doesn't care about other people's rumors. He wanted to say that he didn't feel inferior, but he couldn't say it under Night Frost Demon Monarch's clear gaze. I'm sorry, she said softly. I made you do something you don't like. Back then, I made a promise with Yisha. If one of us died first, we'd find the other's reincarnation. We'd be together forever. She smiled sadly, and tears welled up in her eyes. I did as I promised. I thought we'd fulfill our vow and be together forever. Only now do I realize that I was wrong. Our vow was like a castle in the air. It could never be fulfilled. Tian Xian was silent. This was something he didn't know. I found you and saw that you still loved me, so I thought it could be done. But I didn't know that after you reincarnated and forgot the memories of your previous life, you'd become someone else. Since you're not Yisha, how can I ask you to continue the vow from your previous life? He wanted to say that he really wasn't Yisha, but he felt a dull pain in his heart. Was he really not him in his previous life? Night Frost Demon Monarch took a deep breath and said, Let's end our vow. From now on, you're you, and I'm me. The purple ribbon rose and turned into a purple light, stabbing into Tian Xian's head like lightning. Tian Xian's eyes widened in shock as he stared at her. Hong Xiao followed me for hundreds of years, and she died for me. I can't not avenge her. Looking at his unwilling eyes, a tear rolled down her cheek. She said softly, You won't meet me in your next life. Chapter 559. In just a quarter of an hour, Demon Monarch Night Frost lost the two people closest to her. One died for her, and the other was killed by her. The one who died for her was just a maid, but the one she killed was the lover of her two lives. Nothing was more impermanent than this. Mo Tinga couldn't help but wonder what she would do if she was in his shoes. Would she pursue the next life and be together forever? Or would it end cleanly in this world? Chin, she said, as if he understood something. So that's his weakness. Mo Tinga's sigh was strangled to death just like that. She turned around and glared at him. Chin, she was at a loss. What's wrong? Nie Wushang had another realization. So there really are past lives and present lives. Everyone knew people had souls, but reincarnation was the law of heaven and earth. It wasn't something they could touch. Therefore, past lives and present lives were only theories. No one had seen it with their own eyes. From what Demon Monarch Knight Frost and Tian Xian said, not only did they confirm there were past lives and present lives, but they also found the reincarnated people. After a while, Demon Monarch Knight Frost regained her calm. She put away Tian Xian's corpse and searched Hong Zhao's body. Soon, she had something in her hand. Mo Tinga saw the gray light ball in Demon Monarch Knight Frost's hand. A black shadow flashed in front of her eyes, and she threw herself at him. Demon Monarch Knight Frost hurriedly raised her purple satin, but she only had time to protect herself before the gray light ball in her hand was snatched away. Master Song Feng, Mo Tinga, suddenly stood up. In an instant, the fight between the two late nascent soul cultivators was over. Master Song Feng turned into a black cloud and quickly escaped with the gray light ball, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Demon Monarch Knight Frost stood where she was and didn't chase after him. Master Song Feng moved so fast that Mo Tinga and the other three couldn't react at all. Demon Monarch Knight Frost only had time to protect herself. She looked at her empty palm, smiled bitterly, and put away Hong Zhao's corpse. After doing all this, Demon Monarch Knight Frost turned around and walked towards them. Fellow Taoists, do you have a way out? Qin Shi looked at her calmly. How can fellow Taoist Knight Frost be so sure? Demon Monarch Knight Frost said faintly, I've only met you once, but I've heard a lot about you. Since you're so calm, you must have a plan. Qin Shi smiled and admitted frankly, yes. Then, can you take me out with you? Of course, I'll pay you. Fellow Taoist Yishuang, Jing Xingji interrupted. Your disciple has just perished, and you're already thinking of a way to get out? This sentence was simply meant to be sarcastic. They had no enmity before, so he really shouldn't have said this. Demon Taoist, Demon Monarch Knight, turned to look at him. Knight Demon Frost of the Demon Frost Monarch. Demon Monarch Knight Frost wasn't angry, but he also didn't explain. He only said faintly, Fellow Taoist, you're not the person involved, so you naturally won't understand. He then looked at Qin Shi and asked, May I? Taoist Demon Monarch of Frost Monarch Qin, what price you are willing to pay? Doff of time. Demon Monarch Knight. Demon Qin of Qin asked Qin. Qin of Demon, Demon, of Demon. Took of. Qin Shi took it, but said, this thing doesn't seem to be able to hold fellow Taoist. The Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled bitterly. It's obviously less effective against late nascent cultivators. However, it was not to the extent that it was completely ineffective. My disciple is a devil cultivator, and his blood and chi are not pure, so he can't bring out the effect of this cup. You are Tao cultivators. If you refine it properly, it will be of some use even against late nascent soul cultivators. Qin Shi released his divine sense to explore the cup. He then nodded and said, It's indeed a treasure. This isn't the only thing, right? Seeing that Qin Shi had the intention to agree, Jing Xingji hurriedly said, There are 4 of us. Night Frost Devil Monarch glanced at him, then took out a book from his robe and tossed it to him. I also obtained this sword art from returning Ruined Sea. It's useless to me, so I'll give it to fellow Taoist. He then turned to Niao Wushang and said, As for this fellow Taoist, I can teach you the invisibility transformation technique. Niao Wushang's eyes brightened. Fellow Taoist, are you talking about the divine ability to transform into devil aura and be unafraid of harm? It's not that I'm unafraid of harm, but I have to find the right weak point. In addition, I have to remind fellow Taoists that not everyone can practice this technique. Although my aptitude and cultivation level both surpass Tianxuan's, I know nothing about this technique. Niao Wushang nodded. I understand. Night Frost, Devil Monarch, no longer said anything. He took out a jade slip from his Chinquan bag and tossed it to Niao Wushang. As for fellow Taoist Mo, Night Frost, Devil Monarch looked at Fei Fei, who was curled up in the corner and absorbed the white tiger's breath, and said, I have something that must be very useful to fellow Taoist. He then took out a bracelet and handed it to Mo Tinga. This thing is called a spiritual beast bracelet, and it can store spiritual beasts. Unlike a spiritual beast bag, this thing can store up to 10 spiritual beasts. Moreover, cultivating inside a spiritual beast bracelet is much better than cultivating inside a spiritual beast bag. Tinga took the bracelet and released her divine sense. Fellow Taoist, you're right. The four of them each got an item, and all of them were extraordinary. As experienced late nascent soul cultivators, they were indeed extraordinary. The four of them looked at each other, all very satisfied. Qin, she said, that being the case, I'll be frank with fellow Taoist. Before long, someone will come to rescue you. At that time, fellow Taoist can leave with us. Hearing that, Night Frost Devil Monarch frowned slightly. There's so many ghost cultivators here. How are we going to rescue them? Seeing that Qin, she was very confident. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, I believe you. After she said that, she simply picked a corner that wasn't too far away and sat down. Although Night Frost Devil Monarch was sitting cross-legged, her eyes were wide open, staring straight ahead. Tinga glanced at Jing Xingji and said through voice transmission, "You don't like her?" Jing Xingji smiled carelessly and replied through voice transmission, "How could I? No. How could you talk to her like that?" Tinga wasn't polite at all. "If it were me, I'd slap you to death." Jing Xingji curled his lips and said, "If Qin Shoujing died." "Nonsense." Before he could finish, Tinga glared at him. "If you say one more word, I'll slap you to death right now." "Fine, I just think she's very fake." Since they were lovers of two lives, why didn't she hesitate when she killed him? She still had to find his reincarnation. Tinga understood a little. Jing Xingji seemed to be heartless, but he was actually very sentimental, so he felt unhappy when he saw Night Frost Devil Monarch kill Tianxian without hesitation. "You don't understand." Tinga looked at Night Frost Devil Monarch and sighed. "If it were me, I might make the same choice as her." "Why?" "Because he's already fallen into a demonic barrier. Even if he's freed, this life is over. It's better to end it quickly and start the next life." Tinga smiled and said, "I think she'll still look for Yi Sha's reincarnation, but she'll definitely not recognize him. Maybe she'll just accept him as her disciple, or maybe she won't even see him and just protect him for the rest of his life." Jing Xingji's expression slowly softened. "I really can't understand a woman's mind," Tinga said softly. "After reincarnation, we'll be different people. Our fate only lasts for this life, so we should cherish it." After Master Song Feng escaped, he didn't return. Qin, she stared thoughtfully at the stone door. Did Master Song Feng leave safely? Upon hearing this, Night Frost Devil Monarch said, "The thing he snatched was the soul bead Hong Xiao got from Go City. There are countless souls inside the soul bead, and its aura is very strong. With this thing, it can deceive ghost cultivators' spiritual senses." So that's how it is. Night Frost Devil Monarch sighed and smiled bitterly. He must have heard our voice transmission. I underestimated the cultivators of the celestial pole. Tinga said, "If that's the case, why were the three of you discovered with the soul bead?" Night Frost Devil Monarch answered, "The aura of the soul bead can only cover one person's aura. Tianxian can turn invisible, but Hong Xiao and I have to rely on the soul bead, so..." "Oh." Tinga nodded in understanding. No wonder Tianxian said he didn't have the strength to take Hong Xiao with him. If he gave up on Hong Xiao, they could leave safely. However, Night Frost Devil Monarch wasn't willing to give up on Hong Xiao, so it became an unsolvable situation. The world was really strange. If Night Frost Devil Monarch gave up on Hong Xiao and was willing to leave with Tianxian, Tianxian might not have made a move. Night Frost Devil Monarch was a late nascent soul cultivator. Although Tianxian wanted to kill her, he must have hesitated. If he just wanted her dead, he could have left alone and let them be killed by ghost cultivators, but he didn't. The dispute between them couldn't be solved by killing. Relying on the soul bead. Master Song Feng safely escaped from the tunnel. The black cloud dispersed. He stood in the air above Sandstorm City with the soul bead in his hand and a sneer on his face. You'll be trapped down there until you die, even if you use the 10,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman to inform Qin Jinghe. He can't find you here. Thinking of Nie Wuxiang, he said bitterly, Humph. B*TCH, you're lucky I didn't kill you with my own hands. He was about to turn into a black cloud and escape back to Lang Tu Mountain when he suddenly looked up and stared at the east with his withered eyes. Several flight lights flew over in an instant, and a glittering white net covered him from above. Master Songfeng was shocked. He turned into a black cloud and was about to escape. Unexpectedly, another flight light appeared in the place he was about to escape. The sword aura tore through the sky and rushed towards him mercilessly. Master Songfeng was shocked after dodging the sword aura. Then, flames soared into the sky, and at the same time, Lord Daoist Jinghe's triumphant voice rang out. Old Songfeng, what a coincidence! You're also here. As soon as he finished speaking, several flight lights surrounded him. The flight lights dispersed, revealing several people's faces. The one flying over from the east was Lord Daoist Jinghe, wearing a golden crown and luxurious clothes. He held a leaf fire gourd in his hand, ready to attack. On the west was a handsome young swordsman dressed in a black sword robe, with a flying sword as bright as stars floating in front of him. On the south was a taciturn Taoist in plain clothes. His thin face was expressionless, and his eyes were cold. On the north was a woman in white holding a zither. Master Songfeng was shocked. Qin Jinghe, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, Lord Taoist Wordless, and Ding Wan. Why did all these people come? Chapter 560. 3 cultivators in the late nascent soul stage, and 1 in the middle nascent soul stage. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying and Lord Taoist Speechless had been in the late nascent soul stage for hundreds of years, and their strength was unfathomable. Lord Taoist Jinghe had just entered the late nascent soul stage not long ago, but he was well known for his bloodthirst. Together with Ding Wan, they were the top cultivators in the middle stage of the nascent soul stage. No matter how arrogant Master Songfeng was, he didn't think he could get the upper hand against these 4 people. In the black cloud, Master Songfeng's mind was as fast as lightning. He had decided to run, but where to run was a problem. As he thought about this, he suddenly sensed something. He turned his head and saw more than a dozen flight lights rushing towards him from the east. Sensing their cultivation levels, Master Songfeng was shocked. All of them are nascent soul cultivators. Hey, Old Songfeng, look at the gift we prepared for you. Are you surprised? Lord Taoist Jinghe never fell behind when it came to adding insult to injury. The flight lights of the nascent soul cultivators arrived in a flash, and more than a dozen nascent soul and middle nascent soul cultivators showed up. Although it was extremely dangerous, Master Songfeng calmed down. After he reached the nascent soul stage with ordinary aptitude, he became the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole. Apart from fated chances, he didn't lack any wisdom. Qin Jinghe, you're so powerful. Do you want to kill me in one fell swoop? How would I dare? Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled. But I still have to leave a layer of skin, right? A cold hum came from the black cloud. You want to keep me here with your numbers? You're too naive. Old Songfeng, you want to escape from the siege of so many people with just the nascent soul stage? You're too naive. It was Ding Wan who spoke. She and Master Songfeng had an old grudge, and they fought once on Demonic Mountain. Master Songfeng didn't answer. Qin Jinghe alone was hard enough to deal with. But now there was a group of people. Don't talk to him. Let's do it. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said faintly and waved her right hand gently. The winged feather sword floating in front of her instantly turned into a sword light and rushed towards Master Songfeng like lightning. Gujin sect had lost a lot of people to Master Songfeng, and among them, there was even a nascent soul cultivator. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had once sought trouble with Master Songfeng because of this, but in the end, he didn't gain any advantage. Now that he had a chance to kill Master Songfeng, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Master Songfeng didn't dare to underestimate the attack of a Queen-origin sword cultivator. The black clouds scattered around him suddenly gathered together and turned into a shield, meeting the Wind Feather sword head-on. The Wind Feather sword was called Wind Feather. It was as fast as the wind and as light as a feather. The moment it collided with the black cloud shield, it nimbly made a turn and stabbed toward Master Songfeng again. At the same time, the sound of the zither rang out. Ding Wan plucked the strings of the zither. Like a powerful army, swords and spears clashing, she attacked Master Songfeng murderously. Lord Daoist Jinghe made a hand seal, and Nanyang Li fire sprang out of the gourd, forming 1,000 feet long rainbow light that burned towards Master Songfeng. Daolord Speechless wasn't idle either. A giant net of lightning descended from the heavens, flashing with white light, and occasionally crackling sounds could be heard. When the four of them attacked, all of them used the killing moves that they were famous for. Facing Master Songfeng, they didn't dare to take him lightly even if they were besieging him. Qin, she suddenly opened his eyes. After listening carefully for a while, he said, "There's movement." Upon hearing that, the other four people woke up from their meditation. "What's wrong?" Mo Tinga asked. "Qin," she said, "there's a fight of magical powers up there." Before he finished speaking, the surroundings shook. The stone used to build the sacrificial temple was made of unknown materials, but it was extremely hard. Cultivators fighting wouldn't make it collapse. Such a strong shaking, if it wasn't close to the place where the fight was taking place, would be extremely powerful. Judging from the current situation, it shouldn't be the former. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, no wonder these people are so sure. This kind of movement means there must be more than one cultivator in the late nascent soul stage. The earth-shaking fight lasted for a quarter of an hour before it slowly quieted down. Mo Tiango was puzzled. Where's the fight taking place? The one who answered was Demon Monarch Knight Frost. She said faintly, in Sandstorm City. Qin nodded. He could only roughly sense the location of the fight. After a brief calculation, it should be in Sandstorm City. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's words confirmed it. In Sandstorm City. Could it be that ghost cultivators want to come out? It's possible. Qin, she said. Now that we know there's a ghost city here, maybe those ghost cultivators will go all out and simply come out in a high profile to make us fear the strength of the ghost city and not dare to disturb us. Mo Tinga shook her head. There's a sacrificial temple and a secret storehouse here. Those ghost cultivators are wrong. They speculated, but they didn't know they were wrong. Ghost cultivators didn't want the world to know about the existence of the ghost city, at least not now. After 2 hours of silence, the mountain shook again. They even heard a thunderous explosion as if the mountain was collapsing. Gradually, the ghost cultivators outside the sacrificial temple became restless like a cat released into a group of mice. Sensing the panic, Jing Xingji couldn't sit still anymore. He said, "I'll go out and take a look." Demon Monarch Knight Frost also said, "I'll go too." Nie Wushang didn't need to be mentioned. She was safe here because of the spirit-concealing formation Mo Tinga laid, so she couldn't wait to go out. Mo Tinga was about to go out with Qin when Fei Fei pulled her sleeve. "Don't go. Wait." Mo Tinga stopped Qin Shi. "What's wrong?" Mo Tinga pointed at Fei Fei. "It wants to subdue the white tiger." Qin Shi was surprised. "It has a way." Mo Tinga didn't explain and just looked at Fei Fei. Fei Fei didn't waste any time. It silently chanted an obscure incantation, and its 4 claws slowly emitted a golden light. Mo Tinga and Qin Shi's spirits were shaken. They felt like their minds had never been so clear. Stepping on the golden light, Fei Fei leaped towards the white tiger. The two of them felt the killing intent in the air slowly dissipate, and their minds became clear. This was a very mysterious feeling. They seemed to have arrived in another world. The sky was high, the clouds were clear, the sun was bright, and the spring breeze was caressing their faces. It was extremely peaceful. "What are you standing there for?" Fei Fei's voice rang out. awakening the two of them from their intoxication. This time, it directly made a sound instead of using its divine sense to transmit its voice. She sobered up and was stunned. It can talk. Tinga didn't have time to explain to him. She looked up and saw Fei standing in the center. The white tiger had disappeared without a trace. Can you really put away? Tinga was surprised. The white tiger's body was so huge that the storage space it came with as a spiritual beast could actually hold it. Fei didn't answer this stupid question. It lowered its head and looked at the golden, fist-sized light bead under its feet. It said regretfully, "It actually didn't recognize me as its master." "What's this?" Tinga sensed the pure, white tiger's breath in it. Fei didn't absorb it completely. Fei said, "The white tiger's power is too strong. I can't hold it. You guys try it." "What a pity." Tinga smiled. The azure dragon bone she obtained wasn't complete, and Shi's vermilion bird's breath hadn't been completely absorbed yet. If Fei really took the whole white tiger, she would feel it was unfair. "Senior Marshal Brother, you have metal spiritual roots. You could try it first." Tinga called out when she remembered that Shi's 3-yong real fire sword was also metal. She nodded. Without any nonsense, he walked towards the white tiger light bead. He had already experienced a fated chance encounter with a divine beast, so he was still calm. He didn't immediately try to take it. Instead, he operated the pure yang art and covered his hand with a layer of spiritual aura before he grabbed the white tiger light bead. As soon as his spiritual aura touched the light bead suddenly released white tiger's breath, surging towards Shi with a murderous intent. Once he realized something was wrong, Shi immediately forced out the vermilion bird's flame to block the white tiger's breath. Although the vermilion bird's flame he subdued was much weaker, white tiger's attribute was metal and was restrained by fire. He only retreated a few steps before he stood firmly. Fei was disappointed. Although you have metal spiritual roots, you haven't practiced metal cultivation techniques, so you're not strong enough to subdue white tiger's breath. Shi had long prepared for this, so he didn't feel too disappointed. He turned to Tinga. "Do you want to try it?" Although she agreed, Tinga didn't think she could subdue white tiger's breath. She also hadn't practiced metal cultivation techniques. She only had the great heavenly thunder technique, which was slightly related to the metal attribute. Sure enough, as soon as she touched the white tiger light bead, it burst out with a strong killing intent. Fortunately, she was prepared for it. With a thought, golden lightning emerged from her hand. At the same time, she summoned the vermilion bird's flame to block it for her. "What should we do?" Fei was even more disappointed. Fertile water shouldn't be kept in an outsider's field. If the three of them, 2 people and 1 beast couldn't subdue it, wouldn't that be giving it to someone else? There was a loud noise outside, and the sacrificial temple shook even more violently. At the same time, a flame flew in from outside. Shi reached out, and the flame fell on his hand. It was a fire talisman. He flicked his finger, and the fire talisman turned into a wisp of smoke. A voice came through. "Little brat, you're still alive, right?" Shi smiled. "Master is here." Upon hearing Lord Taoist Jinghe's voice, Tinga also felt relieved. "Then shall we go out?" And since they couldn't subdue it, I didn't need to stay. Tinga patted Fei's spiritual beast bag. "I don't need to tell you, right?" Fei curled its lips and obediently returned to the spiritual beast bag. Having a master was good. At least it didn't need to take risks on its own. The two of them flew along the stone path and arrived at the damaged part of the stone wall in an instant. The ghost cultivators guarding outside were no longer there. Not far away, ghost cultivators were fighting with a group of human cultivators. There were about 20 human cultivators, and all of them were in the nascent soul realm. Although they weren't as many as ghost cultivators, their magic weapons were much more powerful, so the battle was temporarily tied. Tinga saw Lord Taoist Jinghe at first glance, who told him to be so eye-catching with his dazzling golden clothes. "Master, Lord Taoist Jinghe turned to look at them and glared at them. Two little brats. You really know how to cause trouble. You need a lesson, right? Mo Tinga giggled. Master can teach us a lesson when we go back. Less nonsense. Why aren't you helping us? Although it was delightful for master and disciple to reunite, they had to be careful of provoking public anger. Qin Shoujing only used a sound-transmitting talisman, but Qin Jinghe dragged a large group of nascent soul cultivators to fight. It was really annoying. Sure enough, Ding Luan shouted loudly, "Can you master and disciple talk after you're done fighting? If you keep talking, I'll leave." Mo, Tinga, and Qin, she cupped their fists towards the number 1 female cultivator in the celestial pole and joined the fight. At the same time, she sent a voice transmission to Jing Xingji, who wasn't too far away. "Fellow Taoist Jing, go back and take a look. Maybe you'll have a fated chance." Jing Xingji, who was fighting, looked at her with surprise. Mo Tinga showed a faint smile. Jing Xingji pondered for a moment, then pretended to be powerless and returned to the sacrificial temple. Chapter 561. The fight of dozens of nascent soul cultivators soon caused the whole mountain to collapse. This secret storehouse, hidden in the West Mountain Range, was finally exposed to the sun after tens of thousands of years. As soon as they saw the sun, the ghost cultivators turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated to the ghost city. The human cultivators seized the opportunity and finally alerted the master of the ghost city, the Ghost Venerable. This Ghost Venerable was already at the peak of the late nascent soul realm, only a step away from the deification realm. Because ghost cultivators had no bodies, it was difficult for them to resist the power of heaven and earth. Once they advanced to the deification realm, they would face a great tribulation, so they didn't dare to do so. Even under the sun, the 3 late nascent soul cultivators and the Ghost Venerable only fought to a draw. In the end, the two sides shook hands and sat down to negotiate. These things had nothing to do with Mo Tinga and Qin Shi. With the elders here, they couldn't make decisions. They just sat leisurely on a relatively intact mountain, waiting for the result of the negotiation. In this war, Fengsha City and the mountain range connected to it were almost razed to the ground, causing the Shirong people not far from Fengsha City to shout that gods had descended. Looking at these Shirong people, Mo Tinga had a strange feeling. Thinking about it carefully, the legend of the Shirong people was quite close to the truth. They said Fengsha City was a city of devils, but in the end, there really was a ghost city hidden under Fengsha City. They said gods had descended. Weren't they, the cultivators, the gods in the eyes of the Shirong people? Jing Xingji flew out of the sacrificial temple with a happy face. The mountain collapsed, and the sacrificial temple was exposed. Qin Shoujing, Mo Qingwei. He shouted from a distance, causing a lot of people to look at him. Nie Wushang curled her lips. He was really a very practical guy. He called whoever was good for him. Look, the 3 of them were sitting together, but this guy simply ignored her. The sword light fell on the mountain where they were. Jing Xingji put away his flying sword and smiled like peach blossoms flying everywhere. "You subdued it?" Mo Tinga asked. Jing Xingji nodded. He couldn't control the smile on his face. I've finally gotten lucky this time," Nie Wushang said indifferently. "You've put good luck on your face. Do you want others to steal it? There are many jealous people here." Jing Xingji stopped smiling. Unfortunately, he was in a good mood. Even if he didn't smile, he was still beaming with joy. Ahem. He put on an act and stopped smiling. He looked at the nascent soul cultivators who were resting not far away and said, "If they want to snatch this Taoist things, it depends on whether they have the ability or not." It wasn't that he was being arrogant, but it was good enough that he didn't rob ordinary Yuanshu and Yuanzhong cultivators. As for late Yuanshu cultivators, they could still run if they couldn't beat him. Just as they were chatting, the Night Frost Demon Monarch came over. Now that the celestial pole demonic path was at odds with each other, she was a demonic cultivator. If she hadn't reached an agreement with them, she would most likely be surrounded and attacked by them right now. The Night Frost Demon Monarch was very glad that he had chosen to work with them. Fellow Taoists, Fiend Lord Night Frost bowed. The four of them stood up and bowed in return. I'm going back to Yunzhong. Let's meet again if fate allows it. Fellow Yi Shuang, are you leaving so soon? The Night Frost Demon Lord swept his gaze across the surrounding cultivators and said, It's inconvenient to stay here. It's best if you leave as soon as possible. Mo Tinga thought of something and asked, Fellow Taoist Night Frost, didn't you come here for something? If you leave now, wouldn't this trip be in vain? The Night Frost Demon Monarch lowered his gaze and said softly, There's no need. The four of them understood that he must have taken this thing for Tianxian. The atmosphere was awkward, so Mo Tinga said hurriedly, That being the case, we'll meet again. The Night Frost Demon Monarch looked up and showed a rare smile. We'll meet again. Once he finished speaking, he waved the purple satin, turned into a flight light, and quickly disappeared into the sky. Soon after the Night Frost Demon Monarch left, Lord Taoist Jinghe came out. As a late, nascent, soul great cultivator and the representative of Xianqing School, he naturally participated in the negotiations. Now that he came out, there should be a result. Master, Mo Tiange and Qin, she shouted. Jing Xingji and Nie Wushang stood up awkwardly and bowed. Senior Jinghe. Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, Why are you so polite? Sit down. He then took out the cloud carriage in a carefree manner and cast a spell, turning it into a gazebo. As expected of a late, nascent soul cultivator, even his means of enjoyment were more brilliant than theirs. It could be seen that nascent soul cultivators also depended on accumulation. Those who were carefree wherever they went were most likely nascent soul cultivators who had been cultivating for a long time. Only then would they have the time to make these things in their spare time. As for those like them who found a random corner to squat, they were most likely people who hadn't formed their nascent soul for a long time or wholeheartedly cultivated. Although these means of enjoyment weren't important in fighting, if they fought normally, their momentum would be weakened. Mo Tingo wondered whether she should also make something. Ever since she embarked on the path to immortality, she hadn't stopped cultivating. Now that she was a nascent soul cultivator, cultivation speed wasn't the most important thing. She still had more than 1,000 years of lifespan. With her qualifications and resources, reaching the late nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Therefore, the most important thing was accumulation. Not only the accumulation of cultivation, but also the accumulation of mental state. The five of them sat in the gazebo. Qin, she asked first, Master, how did your discussion go? Lord Taoist Jinghe said, Since we didn't fight, we naturally reached an agreement. What was the result? The four pairs of eyes stared at Lord Taoist Jinghe. We repaired the damaged parts of the ghost city, and the storehouse and the sacrificial temple will belong to us. Both sides won't invade each other. Oh, this was the best result. Now that the celestial pole was facing enemies on both sides, it really couldn't afford a war. For these ghost cultivators, occupying the resources on the ground was also unnecessary. They were afraid of sunlight, so it was best if they could hide in the ghost city and cultivate without competing with the rest of the world. Lord Taoist Jinghe wasn't interested in these things, so he simply glanced at the four people without saying anything. Mo Tiange and Qin, she were scared by his gaze, and Nie Wushang and Jing Xingji also felt a bit uneasy. Because of Mo Tiange and Qin Shi's relationship, the two of them naturally regarded Lord Taoist Jinghe as their elder. Now that they saw his expression, they couldn't help but think, did Lord Taoist Jinghe have a bad opinion of them and didn't want them to associate with them? Nie Wushang was used to feeling inferior. She was Master Songfeng's disciple, and Master Songfeng was hated by everyone in Kunwu. As for Jing Xingji, he couldn't help but think that he was an abandoned disciple of Gujin's sect, so he really wasn't a good disciple to the sect. Unexpectedly, Lord Taoist Jinghe didn't even ask them. He just said, Did you get something good? Others might not know, but he knew there were good things in the sacrificial temple. Qin, she got the vermilion bird bow from a vermilion bird sacrificial temple, so there was no reason that the White Tiger sacrificial temple didn't have anything. The White Tiger's fated chance was useless to ghost cultivators, so it must have been taken by the four of them. Mo Tinga chuckled. Master, are you jealous? Lord Taoist Jinghe rolled his eyes at her. Don't show off your fated chance. Otherwise, if I can't control myself one day, I'll snatch all your treasures. Yes, Master, snatching a disciple will cause inner demons. Inner demons my ass. I'm already in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, so there's nothing to worry about even if I don't advance to the deification realm. Both Nie Wuxiang and Jing Xingji were dumbstruck as they watched the two of them spouting nonsense. Both of them had masters before, so when they faced their masters, they were always respectful and respectful. Unlike them, the master and disciple, who spouted nonsense. After Jing Xingji recovered from his surprise, he thought, the rumors are indeed true. Lord Taoist Jinghe is very strange. He doesn't look like a nascent soul cultivator at all. After talking nonsense, Lord Taoist Jinghe looked at Nie Wuxiang with a smile. Girl, you're old man Song Feng's disciple, right? That old guy doesn't look like a person, but he actually taught such a disciple. Although he didn't say it explicitly, his tone showed his appreciation for Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang was a bit overwhelmed by the favor. Senior, Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, You don't have to be so nervous. I have a big grudge against your master, and it has nothing to do with you. You're friends with my two brats, so I regard you as a junior. Thank you, Senior. Nie Wuxiang suppressed the excitement in her heart and answered. Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled and said, Since I regard you as a junior, I'll give you a word of advice. Your master made a lot of enemies in Kunwu, so if you don't have anything else to do, you shouldn't stay in the Celestial Pole. Now that the world has changed, you can go anywhere, and Yunzhong is very suitable. Nie Wuxiang answered respectfully. This matter is over, so Junior originally planned to return to Yunzhong. Lord Taoist Jinghe nodded with a smile, then turned to Jing Xingji and said with a sigh, Boy, your fate can be considered full of misfortunes. I knew your master in the past, so I'll give you a word of advice. Being an individual cultivator is certainly unrestrained, but with a cultivation group as a backer, some things are much more convenient. Old Taoist fooling is dead, and you're already a nascent soul cultivator, so the obstacles in the past don't exist anymore. Jing Xingji looked serious, which was rare for him. After listening to Lord Taoist Jinghe's words, he was silent for a moment, then respectfully replied, Thank you for your advice, Senior. Junior will definitely keep it in mind. However, he didn't make his attitude clear. Lord Taoist Jinghe knew Jing Xingji had his own ideas, so he didn't say anything more. After all, people were different. Although he lived several hundred years longer than these juniors, he couldn't make decisions for them. Right? Lord Taoist Jinghe glanced at Nie Wuxiang and said, When we came, we happened to run into old man Song Feng here. Mo Tinga was shocked and asked impatiently, What was the result? Master Song Feng, he even gave up his body. With Nie Wuxiang here, Lord Taoist Jinghe put away his complacency and said, Although we didn't make him stay with so many people, we still heavily injured him. At the very least, he shouldn't think about stirring up trouble in the next 100 years. Nie Wuxiang felt both relieved and sad. Since her master was seriously injured, she didn't have to worry about him chasing after her for a while. This thing was left by old man Song Feng. You can play with it. Lord Taoist Jinghe took out a gray bead from his sleeve and threw it to Mo Tinga. This old bead was very rare, but it had no specific use and was nothing more than a toy. At that moment, a sword light flew towards them from not far away, and a handsome young swordsman landed on top of the mountain. Mo Tinga discovered his cultivation level was in the late nascent soul realm, and the flying sword floating above his head, so she knew he was venerable swordsman Yuanying of Gujin sect. She didn't expect this top late nascent soul sword cultivator to look like a teenager. Upon seeing him, Lord Taoist Jinghe said lazily, Old man Yuanying, why are you in the mood to come here? Venerable swordsman Yuanying was famous for being indifferent. She didn't care about anything and rarely interacted with other cultivators. For him, to take the initiative to come here was like the sun rising from the west. Venerable swordsman Yuanying glanced at him and said coldly, "It's none of your business." She then walked towards Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji hastily stood up. Although he didn't salute, his expression and behavior were very respectful. Venerable swordsman Yuanying stared at him for a long time before asking faintly, "Are you willing to return to Gujian's sect?" Chapter 562. If it was someone else who said this, Imo Tiange would definitely scoff at it. In the past, when Jing Xingji was ostracized in Gujian's sect, why didn't he come out to uphold justice? Now that Jing Xingji had formed his nascent soul, he was called back to Gujian's sect. However, this person was Honorable Swordsman Yuanying, so this situation was not valid. Apart from Empress Yuan's cultivation level, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying was also famous in the Celestial Pole for his sword maniac and his righteousness. He was crazy about swords and collected flying swords and comprehended swordsmanship for fun. Other than that, he had no mood to deal with miscellaneous matters. Because of this, Gujian sect also established the title of Deacon Great Elder in addition to the Head Great Elder, and the previous Deacon Great Elder was Sword Venerable Fulling. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying had never interfered in the affairs of the sect, but he had always been righteous all his life. As long as he knew something, he would never be biased. Therefore, Imo Tiange was willing to believe that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying definitely didn't know about Jing Xingji being ostracized in the group. It had to be known that it had only been 100 years since Swordsman Zhongguang's death and Jing Xingji's departure from the sect. To Swordsman Yuanying, this was merely the time it took for her to enter seclusion. Because of this, after Sword Venerable Fulling died, Sword Venerable Yuanying had to come out to manage the sect's affairs. Faced with Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's invitation, Jing Xingji was first overwhelmed by the favor, but then he became hesitant. Venerated Swordsman Yuanying was a godlike existence among the ancient sword sect disciples. Every ancient sword sect disciple viewed Venerated Swordsman Yuanying as their idol, and Jing Xingji was no exception. If it was in the past, it would be an unparalleled honor for an ancient sect's disciple to receive a word from Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. However, Jing Xingji didn't answer for a long time as he recalled what happened to him in Gujian's sect. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying looked at him calmly. There was no coercion or temptation. He was just patiently waiting for his answer. Jing Xingji gritted his teeth and finally said, "Senior Yuanying is too kind. I'm used to living a free and unfettered life. I don't want to be bound by the sect anymore." He addressed Venerable Swordsman Yuanying as a senior instead of the martial uncle of the past. Hearing this answer, Honorable Swordsman Yuanying finally looked disappointed. It was difficult for sword cultivators to make a realm breakthrough. Gujian sect didn't have fewer disciples than Xianxing School, but there were far fewer nascent soul cultivators. After Venerable Swordsman Fulling passed away, apart from Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, there was only Venerable Swordsman Xiao He in the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Although another disciple advanced to the nascent soul realm in the past 100 years, two mediocre cultivators in the early Yuanying stage weren't enough to support Gujian sect, the third sect in the Celestial Pole. As for Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, he looked young, but in fact, he was a cultivator from the same generation as Lord Taoist Jinghe. If they wanted to maintain Gujian sect's prosperity, they had to nurture a cultivator capable of inheriting Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's position within 500 to 600 years. As for the two nascent soul cultivators of Gujian sect, whether it was in terms of comprehension or age, they weren't good enough to shoulder such a heavy responsibility. For this reason, Venerated Swordswoman Yuanying had no choice but to look for disciples with superior aptitude and temperament among the core formation cultivators. She planned to accept them as her direct disciples and pass on her mantle. In terms of aptitude and comprehension, Jing Xingji was top-notch among the new generation of disciples. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been accepted as a disciple by venerated swordsman Yuanying as soon as he entered the sect. He was one of the cultivators venerated swordsman Yuanying thought had a high chance of advancing to the nascent soul realm. Unexpectedly, when she looked for him, she found out that Jing Xingji was missing. Later, she learned about the unfair treatment Jing Xingji received in the sect in the past 100 years. However, it was all too late. Jing Xingji killed venerable swordsman Fuling's disciple. I didn't plan to come back. On this trip to the far west, she unexpectedly saw Jing Xingji, and sure enough, he formed his nascent soul. She naturally wanted to call Jing Xingji back to Gujin sect. Unfortunately, Jing Xingji's experiences in the past 100 years made her lose her sense of belonging to the sect, and she didn't want to go back. With a sigh, venerated swordsman Yuanying said, "Fuling bullied and humiliated you like that, so I don't blame you for not wanting to go back to the sect." Jing Xingji wanted to say something, but hesitated. His experiences in Gujin sect had nothing to do with venerated swordsman Yuanying. He really wanted to say a few words, but he was afraid that venerated swordsman Yuanying would misunderstand, so he could only keep his mouth shut. Forget it. Venerated swordsman Yuanying regained his composure and said to Jing Xingji, "As the head Grand Supreme Elder of Gujin sect, I have a responsibility to protect my disciples. I'm also responsible for the injustice you encountered. Since you don't want to go back to Gujin sect, I'll give you a fated chance to compensate for your 100 years of grievance." Jing Xingji was stunned and stared blankly at venerated swordsman Yuanying. He didn't expect that venerated swordsman Yuanying not only didn't blame him for his unwillingness to go back to Gujin sect, but also wanted to compensate him. He lowered his head and felt that the unfair experiences in the past 100 years were nothing to him. Those cold eyes, those rumors. At least now, the person he respected the most in Gujin sect knew about the injustice he had suffered. Venerated swordsman Yuanying opened his hand, and a small flying sword appeared in his palm. He said, "This flying sword is a keepsake of a senior in my sect. This senior's divine power is amazing, and his comprehension of the sword far surpasses ours. I once promised him one thing, and in return, he's willing to pass on his lifetime comprehension to the person who holds the keepsake. You just need to follow the clues to find him." With a raise of his hand, the small flying sword gently flew in front of Jing Xingji. At the same time, venerated swordsman Yuanying secretly transmitted his voice to Jing Xingji, giving him the clues. After doing all this, venerated swordsman Yuanying said, "I'm going back to Gujin sect. If you want to come back one day, Gujin sect's gate will always be open for you." Once he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Jing Xingji to express his gratitude. With a flick of his sleeve, he stepped onto the flying sword and turned into a sword light, disappearing into the sky. Holding the small flying sword, Jing Xingji stared blankly at the place where venerated swordsman Yuanying disappeared, remaining silent for a long time. "Hey, old man Yuanying is still as good at buying people's hearts as before." Lord Taoist Jinghe's voice broke the silence. He cast a sidelong glance at Jing Xingji. "Brad, if you want to go back, no one's stopping you." Jing Xingji's hot blood was splashed clean. He said somewhat angrily out of shame, "Senior Jinghe, didn't you just urge me to go back to the sect?" Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, "I just can't stand old man Yuanying putting on an act." "Senior," Jing Xingji protested. She dared to bet that Lord Taoist Jinghe was in a bad mood because Jing Xingji stole his limelight. Who told venerated swordsman Yuanying to make Jing Xingji commit suicide with just a few words? Sure enough, when she turned around, Qinshi also smiled without saying anything. With a flash of light, the small flying sword in Jing Xingji's hand was put into his Qinkuan ring. He was thinking that after this matter was over, he would go look for fated chances. Since venerated swordsman Yuanying said fated chances, it must be a great fated chance. Jing Xingji never doubted that fated chances were fake. If it were someone else, Jing Xingji would have doubted their motives, but this person was venerated swordsman Yuanying. His character could be testified by anyone. After a while, the flight lights crisscrossed. These nascent soul cultivators, either in groups or alone, left Fengsha City. Lord Taoist Jinghe said, Baiyan and Ding Wan will stay behind to clean up the situation. When we report to the Immortal Alliance, they'll send a group of cultivators to guard this place. You found a lot of materials for the Immortal Alliance, so you must be rewarded. The latter part of his sentence was directed at Mo, Tiange, and Qin Shi. This task was originally Huaziki and Zhong Xi's responsibility, but unexpectedly, the two of them died. Instead, Mo, Tiange, and Qin Shi, who happened to come to the far west, completed the task. For the Immortal Alliance, fighting on both sides, this secret storehouse was just the right time. After the Immortal Alliance was established, it naturally had to mobilize resources and build a storehouse to supply the materials needed for the war. Each cultivation group couldn't always be responsible for it themselves. Any organization without financial power could easily become an empty shell. However, the members of the Immortal Alliance were the most complicated in the history of the Celestial Pole. Whether they were big cultivation groups or small individual cultivators, all the cultivators in the Celestial Pole were under the jurisdiction of the Immortal Alliance. As a result, how to build this storehouse, where to mobilize resources, and how much each cultivation group had to contribute became thorny issues. Because of this matter, the elders in Kuinzhong City quarreled countless times. At this time, the treasure map in the far west, which they originally didn't have high hopes for, unexpectedly found the secret storehouse of a big ancient cultivation group, and the problem was solved. This secret storehouse was too big. If they had to divide it, who should divide it? Who should divide it? Who should divide it? Who should divide it? These were all problems. If they didn't handle it well, there would be conflicts within the Immortal Alliance. It would be better to directly fill it into the Immortal Alliance's storehouse. This way, each force wouldn't have to rack their brains to shirk responsibility, and they wouldn't have to quarrel over the distribution of resources. The most important thing was that this secret storehouse was more valuable than any cultivation group storehouse. In this way, the position of the Immortal Alliance would be firmly stabilized. Of course, there must be follow-up ways to make money, but this was a matter for the future. Mo, Tiange said, what reward? A spirit-controlling magic weapon? In your dreams. Lord Taoist Jinghe glared at her, then said carelessly, it's probably just picking a few things from the storehouse. He had already seen this storehouse. There weren't any amazing magic weapons, but most of them were materials. Although it was rare, it wasn't enough to make him envious. In that case, Master will take it on your behalf. Lord Taoist Jinghe glanced at her and asked, you don't plan to go to the Immortal Alliance? Master, I haven't completed my goal yet. I don't have much time. All right. Lord Taoist Jinghe thought for a while, then said, Master will take care of this matter for you. However, now that the Immortal Alliance has been established, we need a lot of manpower to fight on two fronts. Our Xinqing school has 8 nascent soul cultivators, so it's not a big deal to lose 2 of you. However, we can't always let other people take care of this matter. When this matter is over, you have to replace them. Yes, Mo, Tiange, and Qin Shi answered. Qin Shi didn't mind, but Mo, Tiange knew that aside from taking care of the chores in Clear Spring Peak, she almost never contributed to the school. If it was during normal times, she could naturally enjoy the school's offerings, but now was a troubled time. It wouldn't be right if she didn't contribute to the school. If there's no result in the end, you don't have to be afraid. Lord Taoist Jinghe looked at Mo, Tiange and said, Yuanying, Baiyan, and those other old guys all have some friendship with me. When the time comes, we the late nascent soul cultivators gather together. I don't believe we can't solve your problem. Mo, Tiange was touched. Ever since she worshipped her master, he did too many things for her, but she did very little for him. If there was a need in the future, she would definitely go through water and tread on fire for her master. All right. Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand, turning the pavilion back into a cloud carriage. Master's going back to Kunwil. If there's nothing else, come back early. Without waiting for their answer, He waved his hand and disappeared into the horizon on the cloud carriage. When Lord Taoist Jinghe's figure disappeared, there were no other nascent soul cultivators around. The four of them looked at each other. Mo Tiange took the initiative to speak. "What about you?" Niao Wushang said. "I'm going back to Yunzhou. These days, I've been thinking that my master probably has some means to know my position, so he came looking for me as soon as I returned to the Celestial Pole. Now that he's seriously injured, it's a good opportunity for me. I have to take advantage of this time to improve my cultivation level." "But don't you have a cultivation technique?" Mo Tiange asked. Niao Wushang smiled bitterly. "Unless my master is willing to pass me a cultivation technique, where else can I get one? Fortunately, I'm already in the nascent soul realm. At worst, I could just slowly explore and create my own cultivation technique. Even so, how could it be easy to create one's own cultivation technique?" "That won't be necessary." She took out a Chinquan bag and handed it to her. "As I expected, this thing is related to your cultivation technique." Niao Wushang took it, touched the Chinquan bag, and was stunned to find it was a stone tablet. Mo Tiange knew what he took out must be Mei Feng's primordial devil stone tablet. So she said, "This is a devil cultivator's item. It's useless to us, so you should keep it." Niao Wushang nodded and smiled. Okay. She wouldn't thank him with words, so she would repay him if she had the chance in the future. "What about you?" Mo Tiange turned to Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji said, "In any case, I have nothing to do. I'll go look for the fated chance Marshal Uncle Yuanying gave me." Mo Tiange curled her lips. "This guy, he's only willing to call me Marshal Uncle now that venerable swordsman Yuanying isn't here. Do you have something important to do?" Jing Xingji looked at the two of them. When Lord Taoist Jinghe said he wanted to gather late-stage nascent soul cultivators in the Celestial Pole, they knew Mo Tiange encountered a very serious problem. She nodded and sighed. "Do you need our help?" Jing Xingji said matter-of-factly. Niao Wushang also didn't object. This matter can't be solved with more people. She shook his head. "You guys go. Okay, call me if you need anything." Jing Xingji took out a jade talisman, cut a sliver of his divine sense, put it inside, and threw it to them. "I'm leaving." Without saying any nonsense, Jing Xingji flew away on his sword. Niao Wushang did the same thing and passed the 10,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman to them. "I'm also leaving. 100 years is still too short. We'll meet again someday," Mo Tiange said sincerely. Niao Wushang smiled and nodded. She also didn't say any nonsense and turned into a black flight light, flying far away. Chapter 563. After everyone left, Qinshi asked, "Do you have an idea?" Mo Tiange took out the soul bead Lord Taoist Jinghe threw at her and said with a smile, "I just thought of it." She stared at the gloomy soul bead in confusion. "What's the use of this?" Mo Tiange said, "All the traps and formations in the passageways outside the storehouse have been cracked. Logically speaking, Xiao Xilan's group must have come to the storehouse. However, there are no traces of them in the storeroom. There are only two possibilities. One is that they left the storeroom safely and went somewhere else. The other is that they disappeared in the storeroom." She pondered for a moment and immediately understood. "Ghost City. You're right." Mo Tiange stared at the soul bead. From time to time, several evil ghost faces protruded from the surface of the bead. They looked terrifying, but they couldn't break free from the soul bead's shackles. There are dozens of ghost cultivators in the nascent soul realm, and Ghost City has been built here for at least 10,000 years. They definitely know where Xiao Xilan went. How many nascent soul stage ghost cultivators are we going to find? The others had left, but Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Luan were still in the sacrificial temple, waiting for the people from the Immortal Alliance to arrive. They could go and contact them now. Presumably, Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Luan would show them some respect. Mo Tiange shook her head. There's no need to go through so much trouble. There are many souls in this soul bead. Perhaps they know. After saying that, she loosened her grip, and the soul bead floated in midair. I'll extract the soul. You stand guard. She nodded. With a wave of his hand, the red sword light split into countless sword lights, turning into a curtain wall that surrounded him. At the same time, he retreated slightly, just in case. Originally, even nascent soul cultivators couldn't touch soul objects. However, Tienga had a soul bead, so she could borrow its power and use it a little. Tienga made dazzling hand seals with both hands, then gathered her aura and focused her mind. A wisp of pure spiritual aura condensed on her fingertips and pointed at the soul bead. On the surface of the soul bead, the gray barrier of light was suddenly broken. Countless souls squeezed into this small crack, pushing against each other and squeezing out of shape. Finally, a soul popped its head out and squeezed out from the damaged area with great difficulty. Tienga immediately waved her hand, drawing the other gray specks of light to this area and blocking the hole. The soul that was squeezed out was a middle-aged man with a sluggish and stiff face. Looking at his appearance, Tienga felt he didn't seem to have any spiritual intelligence. Even so, she still asked, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The middle-aged man turned his head in a daze and did not answer. Tienga asked again, "Who are you?" "State your name." The soul still did not answer. Could it be that it had already lost its intelligence? It was highly possible that this soul pearl could restrain souls, or perhaps it could even refine souls. After thinking for a while, she patiently asked again, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The soul kept turning its head and finally stopped. Am I out?" His voice was stiff with a hint of disbelief. It was good that it still had spiritual intelligence. Tienga heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Yes, you've come out of the soul bead." Although her voice was stiff, Tienga could still hear the joy in his voice. She didn't know how long this person had been trapped in the soul pearl. Maybe he was trapped inside after he died. After a long time, the soul calmed down and bowed. "Senior, thank you for giving me a new life. With this, I can enter the cycle of reincarnation again." Tienga said, "There's no hurry. I have something to ask you." "Yes, Senior. Junior will tell you everything I know," the soul said respectfully. After a while, he had finally adapted to his current state and was no longer as stiff as before. Tienga was very satisfied with his attitude and asked, "From what you said, you were a cultivator? May I know your identity and where did you come from?" The soul said, "Yes, Junior is a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect. I used to be in the core formation realm. After I fell on Demonic Mountain, my obsession didn't disperse. Later, for some reason, I was sucked into this thing and was trapped until now." The Seven Mysteries sect? The two of them had strange expressions. They had heard of the Seven Mysteries sect, but it was a sect from tens of thousands of years ago and had long disappeared. The current seven great sects were passed down through tens of thousands of years of trials. There were also countless sects that used to be extremely prosperous but gradually declined until they disappeared. The Seven Mysteries sect was one of them. In the history of the Celestial Pole, the Seven Mysteries sect flourished 50,000 years ago and then gradually declined until its inheritance was severed 30,000 years ago. This soul was a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect, a cultivator from at least 30,000 years ago. Seniors, could it be that you and the Seven Mysteries sect? Tienga waved her hand and said, "We don't have any disputes with the Seven Mysteries sect. It's just that the Seven Mysteries sect has disappeared." Disappeared? The voice suddenly rose. The soul was extremely surprised. How could it disappear? The Seven Mysteries sect is a famous cultivation group in the Celestial Pole with many nascent soul elders. Tienga said, "Since there's life, there's death. The Seven Mysteries sect disappeared 30,000 years ago." 30,000 years, the soul murmured. "So, but it has already been 30,000 years. He suddenly turned his head, looked towards the east, and shouted, "Master, disciple could not complete the task. I will never see you again." The stiff voice sounded a little sad. After a while, The soul calmed down and bowed. Senior, please ask. Emotinga nodded and asked, what is this soul bead? The soul answered, to be honest, Junior also doesn't know what this bead is. Junior only knows that it was born in the Ghost City realm and will automatically absorb some souls. The Ghost City realm? It's the place where the Ghost City is connected to the outside world, the soul explained. Junior learned from other souls that many souls entered the Ghost City through this place, but for some reason, they were all absorbed by this bead. That's how it came to be. Oh. Emotinga's mind raced, and she asked, then let me ask you. Several thousand years ago, was there a group of cultivators who came to the Ghost City realm? The soul was a loss. Several thousand years ago, he had been in the soul bead for a long time. Seeing that he didn't know anything, Emotinga said, it was a group of nascent soul cultivators. Ah, the soul said, I remember. I don't know how long ago, there was a nascent soul cultivator who broke into the Ghost City and ran into the Ghost Gate. He was killed by more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators, and his soul was also absorbed by this bead. The two of them were overjoyed. Emotinga asked, what was the lineup of that group of cultivators? Was there a woman among them? The soul said, it seemed to be 5 people, and there was indeed a female cultivator among them. What was her name? The soul shook his head. There are more than 10 million souls in this soul bead. Junior doesn't know. Emotinga felt relieved. It didn't matter if she didn't know her name. If Xiao Xilan's soul was really in this bead, she could always find it. Thank you. Emotinga glanced at Qin Shi. Qin Shi nodded and withdrew the sword light around him. You can go. The soul bowed and said, thank you, Senior. Then it disappeared with the wind. Since he was free from the soul bead, he could enter samsara again as long as he dispersed his obsession. If his obsession was still there, he could also become a ghost cultivator instead of being trapped inside, unable to live or die. The sword light surrounded him again. Emotinga did the same thing and released another soul. This time, her luck wasn't good. Maybe it was because she was trapped for too long, but this soul already lost its spiritual wisdom and became a wandering soul. Helpless, Emotinga could only let it go. After doing this several times, she finally released another soul with spiritual wisdom. This soul didn't have any impression of this matter. The jade rabbit rose, and the golden crow fell. Day and night changed. On the second day, another soul finally had an impression of this matter, confirming what the first soul said. Emotinga felt a little relieved. Since this matter was true, she could definitely find Xiao Xilan after searching all the souls in the soul bead. It took a lot of time to try tens of thousands of souls one by one, but they had enough patience. First, cultivators like them had to meditate for a very long time each time. Once they entered closed-door meditation, they might even enter closed-door meditation for more than 100 years, so they'd long been very patient. Second, this matter was related to their lives. Now that hope was right in front of them, how could they not be patient? Questioning the souls, resting, and questioning again. Several days passed, and Emotinga became more and more excited. As more and more souls confirmed this news, the souls in the soul bead became fewer and fewer, and the possibility of finding Xiao Xilan became higher and higher. When she released the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilan, she finally confirmed this matter. Emotinga didn't continue immediately after letting this soul go with the wind. Instead, she put away the soul bead, picked up a stone, and sat down. Upon seeing this, Qin Shi withdrew his sword light and sat next to her. What's wrong? Emotinga's fingers trembled a little as she said, I hope I wasn't happy for nothing. Although she didn't start this matter until she reached the nascent soul realm, she often thought about this matter in the past 100 years. After all, there was a restriction in her mind, just like there was a sword hanging over her head. Once the silk rope tied to the sword broke, her little life would be over. She had outstanding qualifications, many treasures in her hands, and a bright future ahead of her. How could she be willing to let her fate be controlled by others? Every time she thought about this matter, she wanted to tear Wanderer Ziwei's corpse into 1,000 pieces. Unfortunately, The corpse of the other party was long gone. The wisp of divine sense that was left behind was going to disappear sooner or later. That won't happen. She was much calmer. In the past few days, we can be sure Xiao Xilan is inside. Mo Tinga also knew the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilan had been found. As long as Xiao Xilan didn't lose her consciousness, she was inside. It was just that this matter was too important, so she was a bit worried. After resting for a while, the two of them stood up again and began to extract the soul. Mo Tinga tore open the surface of the soul bead and muttered in her heart, "Senior Xiao Xilan, you mustn't lose your consciousness. The person who shared your pillow with you as deep as the sea is actually the enemy who destroyed your family. You can't take revenge, and you can't stay with your lover. With such an obsession, you won't lose your consciousness and become a wandering soul, right?" As she thought about this, another soul broke free from the soul bead and appeared in front of her. It was a young and beautiful woman wearing a plain white dress. Although it was only a soul, her spiritual aura was still threatening. "Who are you? Tell me your name." The soul looked up and quickly adapted to her condition. "Xiao Xilan, thanks, fellow Taoists, for giving me a second life." Mo Tinga was stunned, but soon she was overjoyed and asked, "You're Xiao Xilan? Xuanji schools, Xiao Xilan?" Chapter 564. Xiao Xilan was stunned. She'd been trapped for thousands of years, so she was a bit unfamiliar with people. After a while, she asked tentatively, "Fellow Taoist, I'm a cultivator from Xianqing School." "Oh," Xiao Xilan nodded. "Fellow Taoist, you're so young. You must have formed your nascent soul recently, right? I've never heard of such a young fellow nascent soul cultivator from Xianqing School." Xiao Xilan's expression had always been calm. Although she was only a soul, her bearing was still extraordinary. Mo Tinga praised him inwardly. No wonder Wanderer Ziwei still couldn't forget him. "Senior Xiao, you don't know, but 5,000 years have passed. This world isn't the one you're familiar with." Xiao Xilan was stunned and didn't regain her composure for a long time. "Then, Senior has been trapped in this soul bead for 5,000 years. 5,000 years, Xiao Xilan murmured. 5,000 years. Upon seeing her expression, Mo Tinga frowned. "Senior." She was afraid Xiao Xilan would lose control after learning the world had changed. Xiao Xilan quickly put away her sadness. "Thank you for saving me, fellow Taoist. May I ask how Xuanji School is now?" Mo Tinga paused for a moment, then said, "Xuanji School declined not long after Senior fell." This time, Xiao Xilan just closed her eyes and sighed. Knowing that 5,000 years had passed, she already guessed that Xuanji School no longer existed. Xuanji School's foundation was too shallow. Once she fell, even if they weren't destroyed by others, they would have ended up in internal strife. Xiao Xilan quickly composed herself and asked, "Fellow Taoist, may I ask how you know about my origin?" Mo Tinga smiled and said frankly, "We came to look for you." Xiao Xilan was surprised again. Then she heard an even more surprised sentence. "Senior Xiao, do you remember the name Suji Wei?" Xiao Xilan was speechless, as if she had been hit by a heavy punch. Seeing her like this, Mo Tinga knew she also had deep feelings for Wanderers Away. But fate made fools of people. She sighed softly and said, "I was entrusted by Wanderers Away to look for Senior Xiao." After a while, Xiao Xilan's expression slowly calmed down. She smiled bitterly and said, "Wanderer Ziwei, does he really think he's in Wander just because he left the school? Suji Wei, can you pretend nothing happened just because you don't face it? There is no medicine for regret in this world, and you can't turn back time." She spoke each word calmly, but both of them could hear the sorrow in her voice. There were many sad things in this world, but the most sorrowful was the hopeless parting. Knowing that the other person was still alive in this world, knowing that they loved each other, yet they could not be together. Neither Mo Tinga nor Qin, she interrupted her until she asked again, "Su Zhuwei, 5,000 years have passed, so he can't still be alive. Could he have advanced to the deification realm?" Mo Tinga smiled and said, in Senior Zhao's opinion, how high is the possibility of Senior Ziwei advancing to the deification realm? Xiao Xilan said, without the slightest hesitation, with his talent and temperament, it wouldn't be strange if he reached the deification stage. However, if he had really reached the soul formation stage, he would have personally come find me. Mo Tinga sighed. Senior has a deep understanding of Senior Ziwei. He indeed hasn't reached the deification realm. Xiao Xilan smiled bitterly. We've been husband and wife for 200 years. How could I not know his temperament? Since he asked fellow Taoists to find me, he must have encountered something that he couldn't do anything about. Yes, Senior Ziwei once took a step into the deification realm, but unfortunately, he failed in the end. After he died, his divine sense was sealed. Mo Tinga briefly explained what happened. Of course, she didn't mention the restriction placed on her. Xiao Xilan was silent after listening to her story. Although she could forcibly bring her soul back, Mo Tinga didn't want to force her. She said, Senior Xiao, no matter what grudges you had between the two of you, it's all in the past. Now, one of you only has divine sense, and the other only has soul. Before long, both of you will disappear, so what grudges can't be resolved? Once your memories dissipate, you'll be strangers in your next life. Xiao Xilan felt like she was struck by lightning. She murmured, strangers. Mo Tinga didn't speak again. Although it was painful not to be together, at least they knew that the person they loved still existed in this world, and that the other person also missed them. Therefore, even if they could never be together, they still had the happiness of being alone. But if they became strangers, the only warmth left in their hearts would also be gone. For people like them who had love in their hearts, this was the most unbearable thing. Xiao Xilan didn't say anything. In this short period of time, she remembered a lot of things. Although there were thousands of souls inside the soul pearl, most of them were wandering souls. There were only a few souls that retained their memories. The reason these souls could retain their memories was because they had obsessions and didn't want their memories to be erased. Even so, as time passed, the soul's spiritual wisdom would slowly dissipate until they became wandering souls. Obsessions weren't unchanging. As time passed, obsessions would also slowly fade away. She was the only one who retained her spiritual wisdom during these 5,000 years and didn't dissipate at all, because her obsessions were engraved deeper than anyone else's. Not to mention 50 million years. Even if it was 10,000 years or 100,000 years, she knew that she absolutely wouldn't forget it. When she was young, her family was destroyed. She painstakingly cultivated for 100 years, and then she met him. He wasn't a good person. She knew at the moment she met him, but she never thought he would be one of the murderers who exterminated Tianliang School. Those hands were once stained with the blood of Tianliang School, and among them were her relatives. If she was in the school that day, she might have died in his hands, and there wouldn't be the rest of the story. But she definitely wouldn't forget this suffering, and she couldn't accept that the person who exterminated the school was the person who shared the same bed as her. So, she could only leave, return to Xuanji's school, and never see him again. Sometimes she would think, why did she meet him? Why was he the culprit who exterminated the school? If she had nothing to do with Tianliang School, she could ignore all the evil he had done. But there was no medicine for regret in this world, and she couldn't turn back time. When she was forming her nascent soul, she was almost trapped in her heart demon and couldn't get out. In the end, she succeeded because of a belief. Even if they couldn't be together, at least they lived under the same sky, looked at the same mountains, breathed the same air, and walked the same path. After 1,000 years, they would all pass away, and all their grudges would be gone with the wind. But she didn't wait for such an ending. He betrayed the school and sent a message saying that he would wait for her in 9 Spirit Mountains Wind Breath Valley forever, even if it was 100 years, 1,000 years, until he passed away. And she died a violent death. She wasn't willing to accept such an ending. How could she accept it? She couldn't love him, and she couldn't kill him. In this life, she was in a dilemma, and every step she took was difficult. This obsession, from the moment the truth was revealed, sowed a seed in her heart. Day by day, it grew stronger until it completely filled her heart. Now 5,000 years had passed. Only a few people remembered the disaster of Tianliang School's extermination. What they saw was only a few lines of words in ancient records. Even the Xuanji school they rebuilt also disappeared. But he kept his promise and waited for her in Wind Breath Valley until he passed away. She, on the other hand, became a ghost and was trapped in the soul bead for 5,000 years. Maybe she could keep her memories and become a ghost cultivator. But what about him? His divine sense would dissipate sooner or later, and Su Jiwei would no longer exist in this world. Okay. Mo Tinga heard Xiao Xilan's calm voice. Take me there. Mo Tinga heaved a sigh of relief. She broke the soul bead again and released all the souls inside. Senior, please enter the soul bead. Xiao Xilan didn't hesitate. Her incorporeal body turned into light smoke and drilled into the soul bead. Mo Tinga put the soul bead away and sighed with relief. She looked at Qin Shi. Let's go. Qin Shi nodded and took the sword light back into his body. The two of them turned into flight lights and flew towards Jin. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk 2 days later, Mo Tinga and Qin Shi landed on a cliff outside Wind Breath Valley. Compared to 100 years ago, the fog in Wind Breath Valley seemed to be thicker. They stood on the cliff and saw the fog surging around their feet like waves. Mo Tinga frowned and said, "It's a bit strange." Qin Shi nodded. "And this fog doesn't seem to be natural." As soon as he finished speaking, the two of them looked at each other and looked up at the same time with strange expressions. A sword light appeared in their field of vision. It hovered in the sky a few times, then fell down. The flight light dispersed. When they saw the person's face, the three of them were shocked and shouted, "It's you." The person who fell on a sword light was actually Jing Xingji. The three of them looked at each other. After a long time, Qin Shi asked, "What are you doing here?" Jing Xingji said, "I'm looking for fated chances. What about you?" He suddenly took a step back vigilantly. "Don't tell me you also know." Before he could finish, Mo Tinga rolled her eyes at him. "If I want to rob you, I'll have plenty of chances." Jing Xingji thought it was reasonable. Fated chances for sword cultivators weren't very useful to them. "Then what are you doing here?" Qin Shi said, "If I'm not mistaken, our goals are the same." Jing Xingji was stunned and stepped back again. Qin Shi was also annoyed. "Do you really want us to rob you?" Mo Tinga also understood. She said in surprise, "What a coincidence. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here?" Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said she once promised a senior of Gujin's sect something. In return, that senior gave his junior a fated chance. Someone who could be called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had to be at least in the nascent soul realm and was older than Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. Wasn't Wanderer Ziwei such a person? He was a cultivator of Gujin's sect 5,000 years ago with amazing divine powers. He was definitely worthy of being called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. It seemed that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here in the past 100 years and promised Wanderer Ziwei to help him find Xiao Xilan. Wanderer Ziwei, on the other hand, gave his token and promised to give his junior a fated chance because they were both from Gujin's sect. What's going on? Jing Xingji was bewildered. The person we're looking for is a senior of Gujin's sect. Mo Tinga said, "This is the important matter I mentioned a few days ago." Huh? Jing Xingji was confused. Mo Tinga was about to explain in detail when she suddenly saw the fog in Wind Rest Valley parting. Someone came up. Chapter 565. Mo Tinga was extremely astonished. How could there be people in Wind's Rest Valley? Although Wanderer's Way only had a wisp of his divine sense left, the great formation he left behind was extremely powerful, so there shouldn't be anyone who could occupy Fengxi Valley, right? With that thought in mind, the newcomer quickly flew over. Not one person, but a group of people. Under the leadership of a core formation female cultivator, 8 foundation building female disciples flew up on a huge flying sword. The 3 of them stared at the 9 people without blinking. Upon seeing them, the core formation female cultivator looked astonished. Her gaze swept past Jing Xingji, then Qin, she before finally settling on Mo Tiange. Little sister Yi? What she said was a question. Startled, Mo Tiange stared at the woman up and down. She was about 30 years old and had a gentle countenance. Although she was charming, she was also proud and aloof. She hesitantly asked, Sister Shang? The female cultivator arched her eyebrows and smiled. It's me. Mo Tiange was shocked. Shang Ruan's current appearance was poles apart from how she looked back then. It wasn't her appearance that was different. It was her bearing that was different. Back then, Shang Ruan was gentle and generous. But under the gentle appearance of the current Shang Ruan was a sharp sword aura. Upon seeing the sword on her back, Mo Tiange blurted out, You obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance? Shang Ruan nodded softly. This is a fated chance younger sister left for me. If it wasn't for younger sister's kindness, I'm afraid I would have lost my life long ago. How could I have become Master's disciple then? Although she was only in the core formation realm, Mo Tiange was already in the nascent soul realm, but Mo Tiange still called Mo Tiange little sister with a calm expression. There wasn't the slightest trace of uneasiness. Upon seeing this, not only did Mo Tiange not feel offended by Shang Ruan's behavior, she even sighed with emotion. Shang Ruan's temperament had once again improved compared to back then. Even when she saw a nascent soul cultivator, she was still calm and collected. She could even converse like she did back then. But Shang Ruan chuckled again. No matter what, he can't compare to younger sister. In just over 100 years, he managed to advance from the foundation building realm to the nascent soul realm. He's truly a first-class genius in the celestial pole. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't dare to believe it. Sister Shang isn't bad either. Back then, she was only in the early stage of foundation establishment. Now, she's already in the middle stage of core formation. This kind of speed naturally couldn't compare to hers, but it wasn't inferior to Xianxing School's elite disciples. Shang Ruan chuckled. It's fine if it's other people, but younger sister praising me like this, it really makes me feel ashamed. Mo Tiange smiled. When Mo Tiange saw Shang Ruan again, she exclaimed in her heart. Back then, when she left Shang Ruan in Ziwei's Immortal's Cave, she occasionally thought about Shang Ruan and wondered if Shang Ruan survived. She never expected that not only did Shang Ruan survive, but she also obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance. Although Shang Ruan was only in the core formation realm now, with her temperament and Wanderer Ziwei's swordsmanship, advancing to the nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Shang Ruan paused for a moment. Her gaze then fell on Qin, Shi, and Jing Xingji. These two are... Oh, Mo Tiange said, this is fellow Taoist Jing Xingji from Gujin sect. Shang Ruan's eyes brightened. Right after that, she bowed and said, Greetings to Senior Jing. Wanderer Ziwei came from Gujin sect, so she could also be considered a successor of Gujin sect. In this way, she and Jing Xingji could be considered fellow disciples. Now that he knew Shang Ruan was that senior successor, Jing Xingji stopped being careless and politely returned her greeting. What about this one? Shang Ruan looked at Qin, she with a smile. She had a passionate past, so how could she not see that the relationship between the two of them wasn't ordinary? Although they didn't act intimately, there was a tacit understanding and closeness between their actions. They seemed very natural. This is my senior martial brother and also my Dao companion. We're from the same sect. His surname is Qin, and his Taoist name is Shoujing, Mo Tiange said calmly. A hint of astonishment flitted across Shang Ruan's face. So senior is Xianxing School's Qin Shoujing. Her gaze then shifted to Mo Tiange. With a meaningful look, she said, I suddenly remembered a rumor. Under Lord Taoist Jinghe of Xianxing School, there were two genius cultivators. One was a junior in the clan, Qin Shoujing, and the other was his last disciple, Mo Qingwei. I wonder, Mo Tiange blushed with shame. I didn't tell you the truth back then. Big Sister Shang, please don't blame me. Shang Ruan laughed. How could I dare blame you? Younger sister is now a famous top-notch cultivator in the celestial pole. Me calling you younger sister already means I'm climbing the social ladder. Mo Tinga smiled, but said nothing. Shang Ruan then said with a stern expression, You're here to see my master, right? Yes, Mo Tinga answered. Elder sister Shang, please inform him that I've fulfilled our previous agreement and requested to see Senior Ziwei. Oh, Shang Ruan was surprised, but also happy. Did you find Master's wife? You can say so, Mo Tinga answered. Their agreement was to find Xiao Xilan's remains and bury her together with Wanderers Away. However, Xiao Xilan died in the realm of Ghost City 5,000 years ago, so Mo Tinga really didn't have the ability to find her remains. Fortunately, she found Xiao Xilan's soul, so they should be considered to have fulfilled their agreement. Shang Ruan nodded. Without saying anything unnecessary, she stepped aside and said, Master ordered us to see him directly if it's about this matter. This way, please. The three of them got on the huge sword. Shang Ruan controlled the flying sword and descended to the bottom of the valley. When Mo Tinga came down from the sword and saw the scene in the valley, she was astonished. Elder sister Shang, this is inside Wind Rest Valley. People were coming and going. Some were practicing swordsmanship, some were planting spiritual plants, some were handling game, and some were teaching children how to read. After taking a closer look, they saw a circle of stone houses built along the bottom of the valley. The scale of the houses was no different from that of a small cultivation group. Shang Ruan watched the scene in front of her with a smile. Back then, Master once saved a clan of mortals, and they lived here for 1,000 years. After Master passed away, those mortals moved out of Wind Rest Valley. After I advanced to the core formation realm, Master ordered me to break the Great Formation here and lay a new defensive formation here. That way, Wind Rest Valley would still be a paradise and those mortals would return. I decided to accept disciples here, and I was lucky enough to teach a few disciples. I see. It was no wonder when they came down, there was only fog and no gales. The three of them followed Shang Ruan to Xiao Xilan's statue. After the several foundation building female disciples activated the mechanism, they excused themselves. Please. Shang Ruan raised her hand, then took the lead and entered the cave. This Ziwei's Immortals cave was very different from before. The walls were inlaid with moonstones, and the floor was spotless. Under Shang Ruan's lead, the three of them passed through the hall, walked through the stone path, and arrived at the hall where the 5 Elements platform was located. Shang Ruan made a hand seal. Then a stone platform quietly moved over. After the 4 of them got on it, the stone platform slowly and steadily flew towards the exit. After leaving the 5 Elements platform, the passage of corpses and bones also disappeared. Under the illumination of the Mother Moonstone, the 4 of them smoothly arrived at the stone room where Wanderer Ziwei resided. Please wait a moment. Shang Ruan took a few steps forward, clasped her hands, and closed her eyes. It was unclear what kind of spell she was casting. A moment later, a tired voice rang out inside the stone room. Disciple, why did you wake me up? Shang Ruan said respectfully, Master, the person you've been waiting for is here. The person I've been waiting for. Wanderer's Way paused for a moment, then suddenly said in shock, Little girl, you've actually formed your nascent soul. Mo Tinga smiled, then took a step forward. Senior, long time no see. Heh. Wanderer Ziwei was somewhat speechless. He said with disappointment and frustration, Sure enough, the new generation replaces the old. Disciple, how many years has it been? Master, it's been 152 years since we entered the valley. 152 years. Wanderer Ziwei exclaimed. Little girl, you're not 200 years old yet, right? Yes, Junior is 189 years old now. 189. Wanderer Ziwei murmured. When did such a genius appear in the celestial pole? Mo Tinga wasn't complacent at all. She just said indifferently, What's the use of being a genius under the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei couldn't help but laugh. Little girl, You're quite ambitious. Mo Tienga smiled and said, Junior still has more than 1,000 years of lifespan left. If Junior doesn't want to advance to the deification realm, that would be too lacking in ambition. Well said. How can cultivators like us not have the ambition to advance to the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei raised his voice. Disciple, you have to remember this. Shang Ruan smiled bitterly. Master, disciple is 250 years old now, but I'm only in the middle stage of the core formation realm. I can't compare to little sister Yi. Hey, how can you be so unduly humble? Although you started late, advancing to the nascent soul realm in 100 years isn't a problem. When I advanced to the nascent soul realm, I was 300 years old. If my luck wasn't bad, I would have advanced to the deification realm already. Shang Ruan knew her master's temperament, so she could only say, Yes, master. Disciple will work hard. That's more like it. Wanderer Ziwei was satisfied. He paused for a moment, then said, Little girl, who are these two people to you? Oh, one of them is a sword cultivator. Jing Xingji took a step forward, then bowed. Gujin Sex, Jing Xingji greets Senior. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. This guy, he said he didn't want to be bound by the sect anymore, but now, didn't he still consider himself a cultivator of Gujin sect? You're a disciple of Gujin sect? Wanderer Ziwei said happily. Why didn't Yuanying mention there was a junior with such potential in Gujin sect? Jing Xingji was silent for a moment, then said, I don't dare to deceive Senior. Junior left Gujin's sect 100 years ago. Huh? Wanderer Ziwei was dumbfounded, then said angrily, What did Yuanying do? She actually expelled you from the sect? Jing Xingji was startled. He hastily took out the small flying sword venerable swordsman Yuanying gave him and said, Senior, Junior left Gujin's sect, which has nothing to do with Martial Uncle Yuanying. Martial Uncle also gave Junior the fated chance Senior promised. This is the keepsake. Oh, Wanderer Ziwei's divine sense circled the small flying sword, then he said, This is indeed my keepsake without a doubt. Does that mean you plan to return to Gujin sect? Junior doesn't plan to. You don't plan to return to Gujin sect? Wanderer Ziwei said, My secret teachings won't be passed on to cultivators outside of Gujin sect. If you don't return to Gujin sect, it's useless even if you bring this keepsake. Jing Xingji lowered his head and said nothing. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Wanderer Ziwei said, Think about it first. Tell me your decision later. He then said to Mo Tienga, Little girl, what's your name again? Mo Tienga was speechless for a while, then answered, Junior's Taoist name is Qingwei. There's still several decades to go. Why did you come back so early? Do you expect me to lift your restriction out of a moment of kindness? Upon hearing Wanderer Ziwei's matter-of-fact words, Mo Tienga smiled. Senior, don't tell me it never occurred to you that Junior completed the task you entrusted to me? And Wanderer Ziwei paused for a moment. Realizing what she said, he hurriedly said, You said you completed. Mo Tienga muttered, Not really. Junior couldn't find Senior Xiao Xilan's remains, but I found her soul lingering in the human world. Chapter 566. When Mo Tienga returned to Fengxi Valley, Wanderer Ziwei didn't think she completed the task she entrusted to him. Even he himself felt it was very difficult. If Xiao Xilan died in her sect's encampment, with her identity as an elite disciple of a big cultivation group, she only needed to issue a bounty mission in the group. But she didn't. She didn't come back for more than 100 years. Now she came back, from the foundation-building realm to the nascent soul realm in 152 years. This was a legend that couldn't be replicated. Therefore, he took it for granted that she didn't have time to search for the place where Xiao Xilan died. She probably came back because she didn't find any clues. He didn't expect she really completed it. Moreover, what she found wasn't her remains, but her soul. Wanderer Ziwei was so excited that he couldn't speak. After a long time, he asked in a hoarse voice, Soul, does her soul still exist? Yes. Imo Tinga took out the soul bead from her robe. After releasing thousands of souls, Xiao Xilan was left alone in the soul bead. The soul bead's gray color had faded, leaving only a dim light. Xiao Xilan's figure could be vaguely seen in the dim light. Let me see her. Imo Tinga put the soul bead away. Does Junior complete Senior's task? Yes, Wanderer Ziwei said without hesitation. Then Senior, please remove the restriction and fulfill your promise. Wanderer Ziwei sighed softly. This restriction is ineffective now. Imo Tinga was stunned. What? Wanderer Ziwei smiled bitterly. Although I'm a genius, I can't use a strand of divine sense to place a restriction on a nascent soul cultivator. This restriction is effective during the foundation building realm, and it's also effective during the core formation realm. However, once you form your nascent soul, the spiritual aura of heaven and earth will rebuild your body. How can my tiny divine sense resist the power of heaven and earth? The restriction in your head is still there, but it won't activate. I'll teach you a technique to refine it with your divine sense. Imo Tinga was stunned for a long time. Did this mean that she had been deceived? Even if she didn't come back, the restriction wouldn't activate? She frowned imperceptibly and said, Senior's method isn't honorable. Upright? Wanderer Ziwei's voice was full of bitterness. No matter how insufferably arrogant you were when you were alive, once you die, you'll have nothing left. Before I passed away, I spent decades setting up a huge array formation in Wind Breath Valley, leaving behind my divine sense and racking my brains to attract foundation establishment cultivators. Why not nascent soul cultivators? Because even if I can trap nascent soul cultivators to death, I have no way of controlling them to fulfill my wish. Everyone was silent. Cultivators like them, no matter how strong they were, could not escape the power of heaven and earth. The rules of life and death, Wanderer Ziwei heaved a long sigh. Now, you're already in the nascent soul realm, while this disciple of mine is only in the core formation realm. Even if you want to leave Fengxi Valley, I can't do anything about it. I can only blame myself for never anticipating that you'd form your nascent soul in such a short time. Little Sister Yi, Shang Ruan, said sincerely, my master was wrong in this matter, but he didn't intend to harm anyone. Since I have inherited Master's legacy, and Master is no longer around, I have to take responsibility. Master had promised me everything in Wind Breath Valley. Other than that, I am willing to listen to your orders from now on. When she said the last few words, she lowered her gaze. Her expression was full of respect, no longer as cordial as before. Big Sister Shang, Imo Tinga stared at her with a complicated gaze. You're really loyal and affectionate. Shang Ruan smiled. She stared at the table and said faintly, back then, although I survived, my heart was like dead ashes. If it wasn't because Master pitied me and took pity on me, there would have been no Shang Ruan in this world. Master gave me a new lease on life, so no matter how I repay him, it's what I should do. Imo Tinga also felt sad when she recalled what happened between them as husband and wife. No matter how bad Yao Zixio was, the affection between him and Shang Ruan was sincere. Shang Ruan was deeply in love, so after she lost her lover, she presumably didn't want to live anymore. As for Wanderer Ziwei, he was conceited all his life. Xiao Xilan was the only regret he had in his life, but fate made fools of people. They couldn't be together. Both of them were deeply hurt by love and sympathized with each other in the same boat. It was no wonder Wanderer Ziwei took pity on her and passed on his legacy to her. Imo Tinga sighed, then took out her soul bead again. Without saying anything, she broke the bead's bindings and released Xiao Xilan. A wisp of smoke escaped from the soul bead, transforming into a woman's figure. Xiao Xilan opened her eyes and looked around. This is... Imo Tinga didn't say anything until a moment later, Wanderer Ziwei's trembling voice rang out. Xilan. After just 2 words, Wanderer Ziwei was already speechless. Xiao Xilan was suddenly stunned. You, A wisp of divine sense and a soul looked at each other without saying anything. Shang Ruan signaled Imo Tienga, and the four of them left the stone room quietly. The stone door isolated the sound, and the four of them stood there in silence. A moment later, Shang Ruan broke the silence and asked with a smile, "Little Sister Yi, how's the situation now? We're in the secular world, so we're not very well informed, so we don't know how the fight is going." "I'm also not sure," Imo Tienga said. "It seems to be in a stalemate." "Oh." Shang Ruan said with astonishment, "Hasn't the Immortal Alliance been established? With your cultivation level and your position as an elder in the Immortal Alliance, how could you not know the situation?" Imo Tienga said vaguely, "It's a long story. To put it simply, I've been traveling outside for the past few years and haven't been back for long, so I'm not very clear about the situation." "Oh." Shang Ruan didn't ask further. She knew some things were personal secrets, so it wasn't convenient for her to answer. "Miss Shang, Qin," she asked, "all cultivators in the Celestial Pole belong to the Immortal Alliance. Have you received any summons?" Shang Ruan shook her head. "With Marshal Uncle Yuanning's guarantee, the Immortal Alliance didn't summon us." Shang Ruan paused and looked at Imo Tienga. "If we go to Xianqing School in the future, you'll be in charge." Imo Tienga was stunned. She finally realized Shang Ruan was serious, so she shook her head and said with a smile, "Soon, we'll also have to participate in the war. Big Sister Shang, you don't have to take what I said seriously." She paused for a moment, then said, "I won't give up on Senior Ziwei's promise, but since we're fated, I don't want to go to Wine-Stop Valley." Shang Ruan felt relieved. She bowed and said, "Thank you, little sister. No need to be so polite." Imo Tienga helped her up. Shang Ruan explained, "There are many mortals in Windstop Valley now, so it's inconvenient to move. It's not that I don't want to give it to little sister." Imo Tienga smiled and didn't mind. If what she said was true, Shang Ruan would recognize her as her master, even if it was for Wanderer Ziwei, who would be willing to be his servant. From Imo Tienga's point of view, taking Shang Ruan as a servant wasn't necessary. She was a nascent soul cultivator now. So many people in Xianqing School work for her. Jing Xingji suddenly said, "Miss Shang, since you're Senior Ziwei's disciple, Marshal Uncle Yuanning must also recognize you as a disciple of Gujin sect, right?" Shang Ruan nodded. "Yes. That being the case, even if Senior Ziwei isn't here anymore, you can still return to Gujin sect." Shang Ruan smiled. She understood his good intentions. "Thank you for your concern, Senior Jing. Although Windstop Valley is small, its great defensive formation isn't inferior to a sect's." Seeing how confident she was, Jing Xingji didn't say much. The four of them waited for a long time before the stone door finally opened. Wanderer Ziwei's voice rang out. "Come in." Inside the stone room, nothing had changed. Xiao Xilan stood there quietly, looking at them with a calm gaze. Before the four of them could say anything, Wanderer Ziwei already said, "Little girl, thank you for finding Xilan for me." His voice was also very calm. Presumably, the two of them had reconciled, right? Imo Tienga guessed. She said, "If Senior didn't place a restriction on me, Junior wouldn't have gone to look for Senior Xiao. There's nothing to thank me for." Her tone was indifferent and distant. After being deceived for more than 100 years, she often feared she didn't have enough time. Although she didn't mind, it wasn't that she wasn't angry at all. Wanderer Ziwei heard her and smiled wryly. "Girl, you really hold a grudge. You didn't lose anything in this matter. The things I've accumulated throughout my life aren't ordinary goods. Even so, how could money move Imo Tienga?" Seeing that she wasn't moved, Wanderer Ziwei had no choice but to say, "Deification experiences, this should be enough to compensate you, right?" Imo Tienga's eyes finally brightened. "Really? Of course. How can I break my promise to a junior?" Wanderer Ziwei said, "It's fine as long as you don't make things difficult for my disciples." Imo Tienga smiled, revealing her shining teeth. Junior never planned to make things difficult for them. Wanderer Ziwei no longer said anything. His divine comprehension wrapped around her, and an art was imprinted in her mind. Soon after, he said, the deification experiences are in the Rosy Clouds Cave. He said to Shang Ruan, "Disciple, take them to the Rosy Clouds Cave later." "Yes, master," Shang Ruan answered respectfully. Brat's surname Jing, Daoist Ziwei said, "Have you thought it through?" Jing Xingji's expression was complicated. Junior has thought it through. He paused for a moment and gradually became determined. Junior doesn't want to return to Gujin's sect for any purpose. Wanderer of the Way was silent for a while, then said with a sigh, "Good. You have your own beliefs. Given time, you'll definitely become a grandmaster." Jing Xingji lowered his head and didn't say anything. Comprehending the sword intent of the deification realm was a temptation that sword cultivators couldn't refuse, but he still made this decision. A few days ago, he told venerable swordsman Yuanying that he didn't want to return to Gujin's sect. Now that he wanted to return for the sake of swordsmanship, such an action went against his conscience. However, Wanderer Ziwei's tone changed. "If you can keep your conscience, you're qualified to receive my inheritance." "Huh?" Jing Xingji suddenly looked up. He was stunned. There was a smile in Wanderer Ziwei's voice. "Since Yuanying let you come, it means he's approved of you. He's the head of Gujin's sect, so why should I worry?" Upon understanding the meaning behind Wanderer Ziwei's words, Jing Xingji became excited. "Senior, disciple, take him to the sword cave," Wanderer Ziwei ordered. "Yes, master." After dealing with these matters, Wanderer Ziwei heaved a long sigh. "All right, all of you can go. Being able to see Xylan again before my divine sense dissipates is enough for me." Shang Ruan sensed the sense of farewell in his words. She was stunned. "Master," Wanderer Ziwei chuckled. "Master can't hold on much longer, so you don't need to be sad." Shang Ruan didn't say anything, but her expression was mournful. Mo Tinga couldn't help but think of Fu Yaozi. She was also silent. "I'm already very satisfied to be able to spend my last moments with Xylan. Several dozen years later, I'll dissipate and Xylan will enter the cycle of reincarnation again. Maybe we'll be fated to meet again in our next lives. Go." Wanderer Ziwei sounded satisfied. "I have no regrets in this life." Shang Ruan lowered her head and solemnly saluted him, then led the three of them out of the cave. Chapter 567. Once she walked out of Ziwei's Immortal's Cave, she turned around and looked up. The stone statue, which was hundreds of feet high, was cleaned thoroughly. The woman's face was gentle and elegant, and her long dress fluttered in the wind. She looked lifelike, exactly the same as Xiao Xylan. How much did one miss a person to be able to portray these subtle temperaments so clearly? "Do you want to go to the Rosy Cloud Cave first, or the Sword Cave?" Shang Ruan asked. Jing Xingji asked impatiently, "What's going on with the Sword Cave?" Shang Ruan answered, "Inside the Sword Cave, there's a great formation laid by Master. Inside this formation, sword aura and surging sword intent are everywhere, sealing the sword technique Master comprehended when he was alive." Oh, Wanderer Ziwei's talent was indeed astonishing to be able to set up formations with swordsmanship. "So, you're saying we have to slowly comprehend it inside the sword cave?" Mo Tinga asked. Shang Ruan nodded. "Correct. Back when I entered the cave, I spent 3 whole years comprehending it." Mo Tinga raised her head to look at Jing Xingji. "Fellow Taoist Jing, since you've entered the sword cave, we'll take our leave first." Jing Xingji's mind was on the sword cave, so he waved his hand indifferently. "Whatever. In any case, I'm not going back to Kunwu." Upon seeing his expression, Mo Tinga smiled and asked, "Do you still have the thunder beads you used in Sandstorm City?" "Thunder bead?" Jing Xingji recalled. He fished out one and was incomparably generous. "I obtained this in the bottomless ruined sea. I'm giving it to you." She then said to Shang Ruan, "I'm afraid fellow Taoist Jing can't wait any longer. Let's take him there first." Seeing how impatient Jing Xingji looked, Shang Ruan also pursed her lips into a smile. "The two of you, please wait here for a moment." Right after that, She turned around and said, "Senior Jing, please come with me." Jing Xingji nodded and turned around to wave at them. "Let's go." Not long after, Shang Ruan came back. She took the two of them to Cumulus Cloud's cave. On the way there, she introduced the place to them. Cumulus Cloud's cave is where Master hides his treasures. All of Master's treasures are inside Cumulus Cloud's cave. Mo Tinga looked at the busy mortals and cultivators in the valley and asked, "Where are the resources you need to cultivate?" Shang Ruan answered, "There are a lot of medicinal gardens in the valley, and quite a lot of spiritual plants are planted there. In addition, there's a small spirit stone mine beneath the spirit vein. Although it's not big, it's enough for us to cultivate." Mo Tinga nodded lightly. In that case, she wouldn't have to worry about taking Wanderer Ziwei's treasures. Accumulated Clouds cave was located on a cliff in the middle of the valley. Shang Ruan flew them up and used a special technique to open the restriction. Only then did Accumulated Clouds cave's true appearance appear. As soon as they entered the cave, Mo Tinga and Qin, she were shocked by the things inside. There were all kinds of ores and high-grade spirit stones, as well as all kinds of magic treasures and magic tools. Wanderer Ziwei definitely wasn't a good person. How many cultivators did he have to kill to collect so many things on his own? Look, there's even a demonic technique, Jade Scroll. After recovering from her shock, Mo Tinga started to discuss with Qin Shi. "Senior Martial Brother, these spirit tools and magic tools are useless to us, so we don't need to take them with us, right?" Qin Shi smiled and said, "You decide." Mo Tinga looked around and put most of the things into her Qinkuan ring. She then said to Shang Ruan, "Big Sister Shang, we don't need the rest." Shang Ruan bowed gratefully. "Thank you, little sister." The things left behind were mostly spirit stones and low-grade magic tools, which happened to be useful to them. After leaving Accumulated Clouds cave, Mo Tinga said, "Big Sister Shang, we'll leave now. If you need anything in the future, you can come to Xianqing School to find us." Shang Ruan nodded and said jokingly, "Gujian sect has Martial Uncle Yuanying and Xianqing School has Little Sister Yi. I'm really lucky to have two nascent soul cultivators as my backers." Mo Tinga also smiled. "That being the case, we'll meet again someday." "We'll meet again someday." Under Shang Ruan's gaze, the two of them flew away. Upon returning to Xianqing School, Mo Tinga immediately heard a piece of news. Luo Fengxue successfully formed her gold core and would soon take over the position of the school head. Thus, she went to Sweet Dew Peak right after she returned to her cave. The disciple on duty on Sweet Dew Peak saw her and immediately went to report to Luo Fengxue. Luo Fengxue quickly came to greet her. "Martial Uncle Qingwei." They hadn't seen each other for 100 years, but Luo Fengxue still looked the same. And Mo Tinga looked her up and down, then said with a smile, "This is the first time I've heard you call me Martial Uncle. It feels good." "That's easy. I'll call you that every day." Luo Fengxue smiled, pulled Mo Tinga's hand, and walked towards her own cave. "How long has it been since we last met?" The last time was when Martial Uncle Shoujing formed her nascent soul. After sitting down in Luo Fengxue's cave, Mo Tinga asked, "I heard you're going to take over the position of the school head." Luo Fengxue nodded. "Senior Martial Brother Shin's lifespan is almost up, so he wants to resign from the position of school head, so I took over." Mo Tinga frowned. "These are troubled times. It's not easy to be the school head. Wars were frequent. Not only did the school head have to deal with general affairs, but he also had to dispatch disciples and prepare supplies. It was very complicated. Aside from me, who else will want to be the school head?" Luo Fengxue said self-deprecatingly. In peaceful times, everyone would fight to be the school head, but now they're hiding as far away as they can. Seeing that Mo Tinga was still frowning, Luo Fengxue smiled and said, "You don't have to feel unjust for me. Being the school head has always been one of my goals. You also know what kind of person I am. I don't have such great ambitions to become a nascent soul lord Taoist and oversee a peak." Mo Tinga relaxed her brows. It's good that you're willing. Luo Fengshua looked her up and down, then said, You've been gone for dozens of years. Grandmaster and Martial Uncle Shojing were both worried that something might have happened to you. I was the only one who wasn't worried. I knew you'd come back safely. Mo Tinga smiled. Am I an unkillable cockroach? Who said you're not? Luo Fengshua blinked. Think about the demonic beast riot last time. You survived that kind of situation. The corners of Mo Tinga's mouth curled up. What Luo Fengshua said was right. Ever since she started practicing aura refining, she'd faced many dangerous situations and escaped from death. When I came out of closed-door meditation, I heard that not only did you come back safely, but you also formed your nascent soul, Luo Fengshua said enviously. Luo Fengshua said enviously, back then, we were building our foundations together. Now, you're already a Lord Taoist of the nascent soul realm, while I've barely formed my gold core. I'm afraid I won't have a chance to form my nascent soul in the future. Mo Tinga said, You haven't reached 200 years old yet, so your lifespan is still very long. How could you possibly not have a chance? Luo Fengshua shook her head. I don't have a firm Tao heart like yours, so the possibility of me forming my nascent soul is very small. Let's not talk about me. You've been gone for 100 years. There must be a lot of stories, right? Hurry up and tell me. Mo Tinga couldn't help but laugh. Even though she formed her gold core and was already a high-level cultivator, Luo Fengshua's personality was still the same as before she built her foundation. Luo Fengshua couldn't help but sigh as she listened to Mo Tinga roughly narrating her experience. You're really bold. There were so many nascent soul cultivators, but you actually dared. Mo Tinga picked up the teacup, took a sip, and said with a warm smile, There's nothing I can do. If I don't dare, I'll lose my life. That's true. Mo Tinga put down the teacup and muttered, There's something I need your help with. What is it? Luo Fengshua asked curiously. You're a nascent soul Lord Taoist now. Is there something you need my help with? Mo Tinga chuckled. You're the future sect head. If I didn't ask you for help, who would I ask for help from? What's the big deal about the sect head? Luo Fengshua said in a self-deprecating manner. I'm just a steward with a bit more power. It's only because of the unusual times that I'm in charge of more things. Mo Tinga knew Luo Fengshua was just being modest. On the surface, with the nascent soul Tao lords around, the sect master had very little authority. In reality, apart from these nascent soul Tao lords, everyone else had to obey the sect master. The sect master had the right to appoint the deacon elders of each hall, had the right to intervene in any hall's affairs, had the right to allocate resources, and was also in charge of the sect's treasury. If it weren't for the fact that they were currently facing a war and the responsibility of the sect leader was too great, and that there were nascent soul Tao lords keeping an eye on things from above, making it impossible for them to do anything, the sect leader would definitely be a cushy job that all the core formation elders would fight for. Nevertheless, Luo Fengshua could be considered to have gotten what she wanted. Her ambition was never in the field of cultivation. If you have something to say, just say it. With your current status, tell the stewards hall. Would they dare to not do their best? Mo Tinga said, I want to find a place. She roughly told her about the 5 Souls sacrificial temple. Since there's an azure dragon, a white tiger, a vermilion bird, and a black tortoise, it's very likely that there's a Qilin there. That's easy, Luo Fengshua said. Just put up a task in the steward's hall and send some disciples to pay attention to this information. It's just that the chances are rather slim. That's why I came to say hello to you. Mo Tinga looked at her and said with a smile, It's a task that's difficult to get results. Other people might not pay attention to it, so I'm just telling you to pay more attention. Rest assured, I'll keep an eye on it. Even before she took office, Luo Fengshua had already carried out the tasks of the sect head. Half a day later, Mo Tinga stood up to say goodbye. Luo Fengshua saw her off. In 10 days, my core formation ceremony will be held together with the sect head succession ceremony. You and Martial Uncle Shojing must come to support me. Rest assured I'll be there. Luo Fengshua was still worried, so she repeatedly warned Mo Tinga several times before letting her go. Mo Tinga was in a very good mood. Yi Jingwen and Luo Fengxue had formed their gold cores. Her former friends were all on the path to the gold core realm. Speaking of which, Jinji had already reached the peak stage of the foundation building realm and would soon form his gold core. After returning to Clear Spring Peak, Mo Tinga and Qin, she sorted out their gains from this trip. She examined the spiritual beast bracelet given by Devil Monarch Knight Frost and found nothing abnormal. In the future, the 3 spiritual beasts could all be stored inside it, so there was no need to carry a pile of spiritual beast bags. Thinking up to this point, she entered the virtual sky world and released the 3 spiritual beasts. In terms of cultivation, spiritual beast bags were naturally inferior to the virtual sky world. Just as she opened Feifei's spiritual beast bag, a vast and austere aura rushed out. Feifei, Mo Tinga, was shocked to see Feifei rolling on the ground. She hastily picked it up. "What's wrong?" In the golden light, Feifei struggled to open its eyes. I. The white tiger's breath all over its body was strong and ruthless. "Can't you absorb this aura?" Feifei, bound by the white tiger's breath, said with difficulty, I want to enter closed-door meditation." "Okay." Mo Tinga didn't hesitate and put it back into the spiritual beast house. The white tiger's breath soon filled the entire virtual sky world. Xiaohua and Xiaofan hid far away, not daring to approach it. Mo Tinga felt even more uneasy. Could it be that Feifei couldn't tame these white tiger's breaths? What should she do? These white tiger's breaths were too ruthless. If Feifei couldn't tame them, it would suffer a backlash. Time gradually passed, but the white tiger's breaths were still strong. Mo Tinga laid a meditation formation outside Feifei's spiritual beast house, hoping it could help it. Apart from this, she was helpless. She could only pray that Feifei could pass this hurdle safely. Chapter 568. 10 days passed, but Feifei still hadn't come out. Mo Tinga pondered for a moment, then decided to go to Luo Fengshue's core formation ceremony and sect head succession ceremony. With Feifei's personality, if there was any danger, she would have told her long ago. If she didn't say anything, she would probably be able to handle it herself. Because Luo Fengxue was going to inherit the position of school head, her core formation ceremony was much grander than others. Not only did all of Xianqing School's disciples come to watch the ceremony, but even cultivation groups that were on good terms with her also sent people to congratulate her. For this reason, Miaoi and Xian Yin had specially used the 3 Pure Ones Palace on the main peak. They were the only nascent soul cultivators in Xianqing School during this special period. The others were either in Kuanzhong City or resisting the beast cultivators and devil cultivators, so they couldn't return. However, the 4 grand elders who stayed in the sect were all present, which could be considered very grand. Dressed in splendid attire, Luo Fengxue accepted the sect elder identity tablet sect head Shun bestowed upon her. She then knelt in front of Lord Taoist Xianin, asking him to bestow her a Taoist name. With a smile on his face, Lord Taoist Xianin looked at Luo Fengxue and said, "The path to becoming an immortal is boundless and unpredictable. If you don't have the firm Tao heart, it'll be difficult for you to reach the end. I will bestow upon you the Taoist name Bingxin. I hope that you will hold fast to your Taoist heart, reflect on yourself from time to time, and walk further on the path of immortality. Disciple Bingxin thanks Master for bestowing this name upon me." With a solemn expression, Luo Fengxue kowtowed to express her gratitude. After kowtowing, sect leader Shun said with a smile, "The ceremony is over. Junior Marshal Sister Bing Exen, please rise." Luo Fengxue stood up and was led by school head Shun to the middle of the hall. School head Shun then said in a loud voice, "Disciples, I hereby announce that Sweet Dew Peak's disciple, Luo Fengxue, has been bestowed a name by her master, Lord Taoist Shinin. From now on, her name is Master Taoist Bingxin." The nearby core formation cultivator congratulated her. Congratulations to junior martial sister Bingxin for advancing to the core formation realm. After the core formation cultivator, the other foundation building disciples also saluted and congratulated her. Disciples congratulate martial uncle Bing Xin for advancing to the core formation realm. The aura refining disciples in the square shouted in unison. Disciples congratulate Master Taoist Bing Xin for advancing to the core formation realm. After Mo Tianga's disciples finished congratulating her, friends from other cultivation groups came forward one after another. Congratulations, Master Taoist Bing Xin. Xianqing School has gained another core formation master. The core formation celebration could be considered to have come to an end. However, Luo Fengshue's situation was different. School head Shen didn't order the disciples to leave. Instead, she once again stood in front of the crowd. As sect head Shen's gaze swept over the foundation building and aura-refining disciples lined up neatly outside the hall, her eyes became slightly moist. Scenes from the day she took over the position of sect head Shen flashed before her eyes. It had been more than 200 years since he became the sect master. In the past, when he became Lord Taoist Shenyang's disciple, he also had the ambition to form his nascent soul and go further on the path to immortality. Unfortunately, his aptitude was ordinary and his luck wasn't good enough. Among his fellow apprentices, he was ranked last. His lifespan was over half, but he was still at the early stage of core formation. As he grew older day by day, he knew that nascent soul was getting further and further away from him. At that time, the former sect head abdicated. Lord Taoist Shenyang wanted to choose one of his disciples to be the next sect head, so he stepped forward. In terms of talent, he was only mediocre. In the past 200 years, he had only made mediocre achievements. However, during his tenure, Xianqing School became the #1 cultivation group in the Celestial Pole in one fell swoop. 200 years had passed, and he didn't have much lifespan left. Managing the affairs of the sect was becoming more and more difficult. After hesitating for a long time, he finally decided to abdicate and return to the clan. The new generation was replacing the old. His era was over, so it was better for him to return to his family and educate his descendants. Disciples, sect leader Shin said in a low voice, I have held the position of sect leader for a long time. Now that I am old and weak, I am unable to continue working for the sect. Therefore, I have decided to abdicate my position. He turned around, looked at Luo Fengshue next to him, and said, Today, Lord Taoist Xuannin's disciple, Bingxin, is young, promising, and has outstanding abilities. After several discussions among the Grand Supreme Elders, they decided to let her succeed as the sect head. Right after he finished speaking, aside from the core formation cultivators who remained calm, the foundation building and aura-refining disciples were extremely astonished. Many people uttered "ah," and the square immediately buzzed. Many people whispered to each other, Martial Uncle Luo has just reached the core formation realm, and she's already taking over as the sect head? It doesn't seem to be such a precedent in our sect. Yeah, Martial Uncle Luo is only a little over 100 years old. She's so young. There was no news at all before. How did she hand over the position of sect head? Those core formation martial uncles already knew about it, right? Our ranks aren't high enough, so of course we didn't hear about it. Martial Uncle Luo is also not bad. She's good-tempered and beautiful. Yeah, all the disciples were very satisfied with Luo Fengshue succeeding as the sect head. The female disciples thought she was capable, and the male disciples thought she was beautiful. Regardless of the reason, they all agreed. Seeing this scene, sect leader Shen once again sighed inwardly. Soon after, he led Luo Fengshue to kowtow to the patriarch. After kowtowing, sect leader Shun took out a square seal. This is Xianqing School's sect head seal. I'll give it to you now. I hope you'll do your best for Xianqing School. Luo Fengshue took it and said respectfully, Yes, sect head. Sect leader Shun let go of her hand. From now on, You're the sect head of Xianqing School. Then, she took 2 steps forward, turned around, and bowed. Disciple kowtows to sect head. The core formation cultivators on both sides also turned around and saluted. Greetings, sect head. After them were the foundation building disciples outside the hall and the aura refining disciples in the square. Greetings, sect leader. Thousands of disciples shouted in unison, their voices shaking the heavens. Disciples, please rise. With a smile on her face, Luo fengshu motioned for them to rise. She already had the demeanor of a school head. With a smile on her face, Imo Tinga couldn't help but recall the first time she met Luo fengshu. Imo Tinga never expected that Luo fengshu, who was still an aura-refining disciple when they met, would one day inherit the position of sect head and become the head of the Celestial Pole's #1 cultivation group. Even if the nascent Soul Dao lords were no longer cultivating in seclusion today, her position as the sect master was not light. All the Grand Supreme Elders left the mountain to participate in the war between beast cultivators and devil cultivators. Luo fengshu was in charge of all matters related to supplies, personnel, and the like. Although the benefits weren't much, the weight was extremely heavy. After the sect head succession ceremony ended, all the disciples dispersed. The core formation cultivators entertained the guests while the new sect head, Luo fengshu, followed the Grand Supreme Elders towards Lord Daoist Xuanin's Immortal's Cave. The 4 Grand Supreme Elders sat down, but Luo fengshu, the new sect head, had to stand. There was nothing she could do. Although she was the sect leader, the Grand Supreme Elder was even more powerful. Junior Marshal Brother Shoujing, Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, Lord Daoist Xianin said. They didn't expect their names to be called first, so they immediately answered, "Yes, Senior Marshal Brother." Lord Daoist Xianin looked at them and said, "Master sent me a message. When you've rested enough, go to Kuanzhong City to replace Senior Marshal Brother Huayan and Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi." Qin nodded. "Got it." Lord Daoist Xianin said gently, "Master said you've had enough of a carefree life before, so you must work hard now. It hasn't been long since you formed your nascent souls, so it's time for you to gain experience. Don't complain about the hard work." The 2 of them nodded. Miaoi looked at them and smiled. "You'd better hand over your tasks to your disciples. Senior Marshal Brother Jinghe said this time. He'll let you gain experience well." Lord Daoist Miaoi emphasized the word well, since Lord Daoist Jinghe said that he most likely didn't want them to come back in the near future. The 2 of them didn't have any objections. They indeed hadn't worked for the sect for a long time. Besides, it hadn't been long since they made realm breakthroughs, so they didn't need to enter closed-door meditation for the time being. Lord Daoist Xianin got down to business. "I called you here because I have something to tell you." The other 4 people's gazes fell on him, and they listened attentively. Lord Daoist Xianin didn't keep them in suspense. He simply said, "Beast cultivators have been discovered in the Eastern Sea." The Eastern Sea. Imo Tinga lowered her head. She suddenly thought of something, and her expression changed greatly. "Where's the Eastern Sea?" Lord Daoist Xianin didn't answer directly. He said, "Kunwu and the Eastern Sea aren't directly connected, and there's also demonic mountain between them. Beast cultivators can't threaten us for the time being. However, there's a Dao cultivation group on the shore of the Eastern Sea that's facing attacks from demonic beasts." Mo Tinga looked at Lord Daoist Xianin and asked, "Bishuan Court?" Lord Daoist Xianin nodded. "Yes, it's Bishuan Court." Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, "Why do you look so unsightly?" Mo Tinga took a deep breath and said, "I'm old friends with Bishuan Court. I once accepted Bishuan Court's offerings and was their guest elder." "Oh." Lord Daoist Xuanin's expression turned solemn. "Senior Marshal Brother Xianin, how's Bishuan Court now?" Seeing that she was a bit nervous, Lord Daoist Xianin comforted her. "Don't worry too much. Bishuan Court didn't suffer many casualties." Mo Tinga's expression relaxed slightly. She nodded and said, "That's good. Senior Marshal Brother Xianin, what's going on?" "Let me explain." Lord Daoist Miaoi took over the conversation. About a month ago, several cultivators appeared in the transporting formation Bishuan court set up in Kunwu. All of them were injured. As soon as they arrived in Kunwu, they went to Tiandao sect. Tiandao sect's Fairy Fengqing asked for the reason and sent a message to Kuanzhong City. Bishuan court's people said a large number of demonic beasts suddenly appeared in the Eastern Sea. They seemed to be driven by beast cultivators and attacked Bishuan court with a purpose. They couldn't resist, so they sent people to Kunwu to send a message. The Doyen Council heard about this and ordered Fairy Fengqing to investigate. Once Fairy Fengqing went, she realized the severity of the matter. There were countless demonic beasts in the Eastern Sea attacking Linhai town. Bishuan court had a great mountain protecting formation, so their losses weren't serious. However, those mortals almost all suffered. After Fairy Fengqing killed those demonic beasts, she chased after them and found that some beast cultivators built a city on the water on the Eastern Sea Island. What? Mo Tiange and Qin, she were extremely shocked. Demon City? Did those beast cultivators want to attack Kunwu? Lord Taoist Miaoi continued. In the Demon City, Fairy Fengqing found traces of beast cultivators. This matter wasn't something she could handle alone, so she reported it to Kuanzhong City. According to the information Fairy Fengqing sent back, the Doyen Council decided to send a group of cultivators to the Eastern Sea to keep watch. In case the beast cultivators really covet Kunwu, they'll stop them at the shore of the Eastern Sea. Qin, she said, we're fighting on two sides now. If we still need people to keep watch in the Eastern Sea, will there be enough manpower? That's why we have to invest more manpower. Lord Taoist Xianin sighed. After the two of you go, I'm afraid Senior Marshal Sister Miaoi and I will also have to go. Only 2 people can stay in the sect to take turns. Moreover, core formation and foundation building disciples also have to fight. Lord Taoist Miaoi looked at Luo Fengxue. Fengxue, there's no time for you to slowly adapt to your responsibilities as the sect head. You have to think of a way to prepare enough supplies for the disciples to fight. Yes, Luo Fengxue said solemnly. Disciple will definitely do her best. Chapter 569. After returning to their cave, they summoned Yi Zhenji and Shui Linbo. Anti-Master. Yi Zhenji came in first. Greetings, Grandmasters. Shui Linbo saluted them respectfully. Mo Tiange looked at her with a smile and said, I've sent a message to the Steward's Hall to accept you as a registered disciple. From now on, you can just call us like Zhenji. Shui Linbo was stunned, but her eyes were filled with great surprise. She hurriedly cowed out. Thank you for your kindness, Grandmasters. Previously, although she took care of their immortals' caves, she was still an ordinary foundation-building disciple of Clear Spring Peak in name. It was only because of her relationship with Yi Zhenji that she obtained the opportunity to serve the 2 Grandmasters and also their support. In Xianxing School, many foundation-building disciples were jealous of her and even gossiped behind her back because she didn't have a status but got something she shouldn't have. But now, as a registered disciple of a nascent soul cultivator, she finally got the identity she dreamed of, and no one questioned her identity and status anymore. You've taken good care of the cave. This is your reward. Over the years, Shui Linbo had almost never entered closed-door meditation. She conscientiously took care of the cave and handled chores for them. They weren't stingy people. Giving her the status of a registered disciple was a piece of cake for them. Yes, Shui Linbo said gratefully. Linbo will do her best to do things for Grandmaster. I told you, you don't have to call me Grandmaster anymore. Shui Linbo hesitated for a moment and said, Anti-Master. Mo Tiange nodded with a smile and turned to Qin Shi. Do you want to say it? Qin Shi nodded and said, I have something to tell you. You have to be prepared. Yi Zhenji and Shui Linbo stood respectfully in front of him and said, The current situation is critical. Soon, the 2 of us will leave the mountain. Zhenji, you've reached the peak stage of the foundation building realm, and it's time to prepare for the core formation realm. You'd better go out to gain experience. Only when your mental state is strong enough can you prepare to form your core formation realm. Yes, master. Yi Jinji answered without hesitation. Qin Shi smiled and said, let me make it clear to you first. You're going out to gain experience, not with us. Huh? Yi Jinji was stunned. Master, what do you mean? It means that you can't go the same way as us. You have to rely on your own strength to survive the battle and find an opportunity to form your gold core. Really, Yi Jinji wasn't worried at all. Instead, he was eager to try. Then where should I go? South? Or Tiandao sect? We'll talk about this later. Qin Shi turned his gaze to Shui Linbo, who was deep in thought. Linbo, what do you think? Shui Linbo hesitated for a moment and said, Master, I also want to go and gain experience. Qin Shi said, ever since you entered the school, you've never left the school, so it's only natural for you to go and gain experience. Cultivation isn't like cultivating behind closed doors. Without experience, you can't cultivate your mental state. If your mental state isn't strong enough, it will be difficult for you to advance. If you want to reach core formation, you really do need some experience. But at this point, his tone changed. Shui Linbo looked up nervously, but Qin Shi said, you can go, but not with Jinji. Shui Linbo was taken aback. Why? Mo Tinga said, you have more ideas than Jinji. If you go together, Jinji won't have enough experience, so it's better if you go separately. Shui Linbo turned her head and glanced at Yi Jinji. Then she turned back and nodded firmly. Yes. She thought for a moment and said, but about the cave? It's okay, Qin Shi said. Let the steward's hall send someone. You just need to sort out the affairs of the cave and hand them over to them. Yes, master. Then Qin Shi dismissed the two of them and said, we should also get ready. According to Senior Marshal Brother Xianin, their trip might take several years or even more than 10 years, so they had to be prepared. Mo Tinga got up and suddenly felt something. She touched the space between her eyebrows and entered the virtual sky world. The white tiger's breath that filled the whole virtual sky world had disappeared and was replaced by a thick and sharp breath. Mo Tinga was delighted. She walked to the front of the spiritual beast house and called, Fei Fei. There was no answer for a long time, but Fei Fei's breath was clearly in the spiritual beast house. Was it still absorbing the white tiger's breath? When Qin Shi absorbed the vermilion bird's breath, it took him a long time. Maybe it was the same for Fei Fei. She turned around and was about to go back to the cultivation room when she suddenly heard a soft squeak behind her. The door opened. Fei Fei. She looked happy and turned around, but the next moment she was stunned. How is it? A clear and pleasant voice came, carrying Fei Fei's unique laziness and arrogance. But, why is there a person standing in front of me? Mo Tinga pointed ahead in a daze. I what? Mo Tinga blinked several times before she was sure what she saw was real and that she wasn't hallucinating. Standing at the door of the spiritual beast house wasn't the golden-furred Fei Fei, but a yellow-clothed teenager. The teenager was thin, handsome, and dressed in yellow clothes, which made him look as white as snow. At this moment, he was leaning against the door lazily with his arms crossed. At first glance, it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. Mo Tinga stared at him for a long time, but the first thing she said was, What? You're not a female? The teenager was stunned. His fair face suddenly turned red, and he pointed at her. You don't even know whether I'm male or female. I'm not a Fei Fei. How could I tell whether you're male or female? The teenager almost couldn't breathe. He'd been with her for more than 100 years, but he didn't even know whether she was male or female. What kind of master is this? Mo Tinga continued. You love beauty and have a proud temperament, so I naturally thought you were female. Nonsense, the teenager said angrily. You humans love beauty, but we spiritual beasts love beauty. If you don't love beauty, how can you attract females to mate with you? Mate? Fei Fei, you're so direct. Do you want to find a female Fei Fei to mate with? As soon as this sentence came out, the topic was twisted. A quarter of an hour later, the two of them sat opposite each other in the cultivation room. This time, it was really two people, not one human and one beast. Next to the coffee table, on the small stove, the water bubbled. The teenager, who was Fei Fei after its transformation, lifted the teapot and slowly made tea. When it was still in its beast form, it could make tea. Now that it had transformed into its human form, its movements were even more familiar and elegant. The fragrance of tea slowly spread. Fei Fei picked up the teacup, put it in front of its nose, and smelled the fragrance. It showed a satisfied and intoxicated expression. I say, Mo Tinga coughed softly. Do you want to tell me what's going on first? What's going on? Fei Fei, who was focused on tasting the tea, answered carelessly. Of course it's about your transformation. Mo Tinga stared at Fei Fei's face, trying to see a flower. You obviously haven't advanced to the 8th rank, so how can you transform? Before the 8th rank, demonic beasts were only demonic beasts no matter how strong they were. They couldn't transform into humans unless they advanced to the 8th rank. This was common sense. Mo Tinga had never heard of an exception. However, Fei Fei in front of her was obviously only in the 7th rank, but he succeeded in transforming. Moreover, there were no ears left, no fur left, and no traces of a demonic beast were left. To transform so thoroughly, it must be a 10th rank demonic beast, right? Fei Fei said. What's so strange about that? The 5 spirits can transform as soon as they are born. I absorbed White Tiger's breath and obtained White Tiger's bone to transform my body, so I have a part of White Tiger's bloodline. Of course I can transform. I see. Mo Tinga thought for a moment, then asked, White Tiger's breath is so strong, so why didn't you advance to the 8th rank? How can it be that easy for spiritual beasts to advance? Fei Fei said, for spiritual beasts, transformation in the 8th rank is like a natural moat. Before the 8th rank, no matter how strong they are still ignorant beasts. Once they advance to the 8th rank, they will gain spiritual wisdom and become the spirit of all living things. This kind of heaven-defying matter can only be obtained through great fated chances. Xiaofan's ancestor lived for 5,000 or 6,000 years, but he still couldn't advance to the 8th rank. Compared to humans, we spiritual beasts have a much longer lifespan, and reproduction is also easy, so we can give birth to 8th rank spiritual beasts that are no less than human nascent soul cultivators. Is that so? That means it won't be easy for you to advance to the 8th rank. That's not true. The corners of Fei Fei's lips rose slightly. Coupled with his beautiful appearance, he could really be called a flower and the moon. Some time ago, I ate a lot of blood-eating vines, and with White Tiger's power, it's only a matter of time for me to advance to the 8th rank. After drinking a cup of tea, he glanced at her. What's with your expression? Mo Tinga said. It's also a matter of time for Xiaofan and Xiaohua to advance to the 8th rank. They lived in the virtual sky world and had countless spiritual plants, so it was hard for them not to advance to the 8th rank. Fei Fei curled his lips and didn't answer. Speaking of cultivation, it really wasn't his strong suit. If it hadn't happened to meet White Tiger, it would have taken a long time to advance to the 7th rank. Mo Tinga couldn't help but laugh when she saw its expression. Fei Fei, this guy, was hateful, but it had one good point: it never lied. Xiaohua and Xiaofan were stronger than it in terms of cultivation. Although it was unwilling, it had to admit it. By the way, Mo Tinga said seriously, after you absorbed White Tiger's breath, did your body change? Fei Fei raised its head. What do you mean? She said, I know the Fei Fei clan doesn't have the means to fight. It's only their innate talent that allows them to coexist peacefully with all demonic beasts. But White Tiger is known as the Fiend God. It's violent and murderous, and it's very strong. Now that you have the White Tiger's bloodline, have you learned any innate magic? Fei Fei chuckled, but didn't answer. It leisurely drank a cup of tea, then waved its hand. A golden light flew out of its sleeve and deftly circled around, causing the bamboo forest in front of them to collapse with a loud bang. Xiaohua and Xiaofan, who were cultivating, were startled. Mo Tinga was also startled. These bamboos had lived here for tens of thousands of years, so they were hard and extraordinary. Fei Fei just waved its hand lightly, yet it raised a bamboo forest to the ground. Even ordinary core formation cultivators couldn't compare to this kind of strength. The golden light leaped back. Feifei opened its hand and grabbed it. This flowing golden light then turned into a slender blade in its palm. Just by approaching it, Emo Tienga could already feel the ruthless aura from the blade of light. It was as if countless saber lights and sword shadows were gathered together and filled the air with a murderous aura. Feifei said complacently, "This move is called White Tiger Strike. Once I advance to the 8th rank, ordinary cultivators won't be able to withstand this strike of mine." Chapter 570. With Feifei as an example, Emo Tienga specially summoned Xiaohua and Xiaofan to inquire about whether they were male or female. In the end, Xiaofan was male, but Xiaohua was female. Emo Tienga felt dizzy. Xiaofan's voice was that of a teenager whose voice hadn't changed. It didn't matter whether it was male or female. It was obedient and pampered, so she always treated it as a little girl. As for Xiaohua, although it was also quite cute, it was the most masculine among the 3 spiritual beasts. Emo Tienga didn't expect it to be female. In this world, male or female couldn't be judged on the surface. Emo Tienga sighed and flew out of the virtual sky world with Feifei. She was thinking about how to refine the 3-yang real fire sword with the Xian fire jade essence when he suddenly saw Emo Tienga appear in front of him with a handsome teenager. Seeing his appearance, Emo Tienga burst into laughter. "What? You don't recognize me?" She regained his composure. He stared at Feifei for a long time and said in astonishment, "It's only in the 7th rank. How could it transform?" "Of course my spiritual beast is extraordinary," Emo Tienga said proudly and found a place to sit. Feifei didn't greet him and just stood there. It never liked Qin Shi, so it naturally wouldn't take the initiative to greet him. Qin Shi didn't care about such a trivial matter. He looked up and down and said, "Why isn't it female?" When Feifei heard this, it suddenly jumped up and glared at him as if its tail was stepped on. "You're female. Your whole family is female." Qin Shi calmly glanced at it and said to Emo Tienga, "If it changes into women's clothes, it'll definitely be as beautiful as a flower. When we encounter beast cultivators, just send it out. It'll save you a lot of trouble." Feifei's face suddenly turned red. It pointed at him and jumped violently. "You?" Emo Tienga turned her head and smiled. Although Qin Shi was a man of few words, he could make people die of anger when he spoke at a critical moment. Jing Xingji was bullied like this. Every time he talked to him, he wanted to bite off a piece of flesh. Now, Feifei also became a victim. Qin Shi still looked indifferent and looked like he was ready to bite if it wasn't convinced. After Feifei jumped, it couldn't do anything to him, so it could only glare at him hatefully and pick a place to sit. Once Emo Tienga was done laughing, she explained to him Feifei absorbed White Tiger's breath, so it was able to transform. "I'm thinking that if your bright bird can absorb a portion of the vermilion bird's aura, it will definitely be able to advance faster." "Oh." Qin Shi swept a glance at Feifei and discovered that its spiritual aura was thick and heavy. Although it was sharp, it didn't have any ruthless aura. He then asked, "Absorbing White Tiger's breath isn't that easy, right? Neither of us can make the White Tiger's aura recognize us as its master. That's a problem." Emo Tienga raised her voice. "Feifei, what do you think?" "Humph." Feifei turned her head and ignored him. "If you can absorb the vermilion bird's aura, Xiaohua can also transform." "You really won't tell me?" "Why don't I change a place for you to stay? The Spirit Beast bracelet is not bad." Ew. Feifei jumped up and glared at her. "You value sex over beasts." Emo Tienga waved her hand to fan herself and said, "It's more like you're a pervert. He's not as handsome as you." Feifei was speechless. In terms of appearance, Qin Shi wasn't bad, but he obviously hadn't reached the point where he couldn't distinguish between a man and a woman. If Fei Fei put on rouge and changed into women's clothes, it would definitely be a handsome young lady. Will it work or not? Fei Fei said reluctantly. It shouldn't be a big problem. Spiritual beasts are much closer to divine beast breaths than you humans are. However, who would give a divine beast breath to a spiritual beast? Humans were the wisest of all living things, but they had too many bad habits. They only subdued spiritual beasts for themselves and rarely spent resources on spiritual beasts. Fine, it admitted its luck was good. Although this master always ignored it, she was never stingy and wouldn't treat it as a servant. Then what should I do? It's very simple. Fei Fei made a hand seal with its right hand and gathered white tiger's breath. It then pointed at the center of its right palm, causing white tiger's breath to rush out and gradually condense into a dazzling golden bead. It waved its hand and threw the golden bead to Mo Tiange. Take this and you'll be fine. This golden bead was formed purely from white tiger's breath. It emitted a golden light and contained a huge amount of energy. However, the white tiger's breath, subdued by Fei Fei, was different from the original white tiger's breath. Its ruthless aura was almost completely dissolved. Fei Fei said proudly, "I've refined this white tiger's breath, so its ruthless aura no longer exists. Ordinary gold, attribute spiritual beasts can also use it." Qinshi imitated its technique, and sure enough, a fire bead formed from vermilion bird's breath was condensed. This fire bead contained fervent vitality, but it didn't have the ruthless aura of vermilion bird's breath. Fei Fei looked at the fire bead and said, "If one bead isn't enough, you can always make a breakthrough after eating 100 beads, right?" 100 beads. Qinshi reckoned the vermilion bird's breath he refined would only be able to condense into about 100 beads. Fei Fei's tone was really big. Of course, if he really planned to feed it to spiritual beasts, it wouldn't be a big deal. After the vermilion bird's breath was used up, he could continue refining it from the yang spiritual bead. It would just take some time. Qinshi thought for a moment and made a decision. In the next few days, I'll condense all the vermilion bird's breath into a fire bead. Spiritual beasts advancing will also help us. Mo Tiange nodded. Qinshi's bright bird was already in the peak of the 7th rank. If it could advance, it would be an 8th rank spiritual beast equivalent to the early stage of the nascent soul realm. With the help of an early stage nascent soul spiritual beast, its strength would greatly improve. Old Donkey Ma, the individual cultivator in Yunzhong, was able to suppress those late-stage nascent soul cultivators because he had an 8th rank spiritual beast. As for herself, Xiao Fan was in the 6th rank. Xiaohe would make a breakthrough soon, and Fei Fei had just reached the 7th rank, so she couldn't count on it for the time being. However, she had a nascent soul puppet, so she wouldn't be too far behind. As for the fire bead, it was good to prepare it first. Once Xiaohe made a breakthrough, its strength would rise again. After Qin, she made his decision. He returned to the closed-door meditation room to condense the fire bead. Mo Tiange asked for his Qinquan ring and her own, planning to sort out. As for Fei Fei, Mo Tiange gave it her identity jade tablet and told it to go to the steward's hall to ask for a set of sect clothes. Later, no one would question it when it appeared in the sect. The three of them went about their own business. In the cultivation room, Mo Tiange casually opened Qinshi's Qinquan ring and poured out a pile of things. The pile directly took up more than half of the stone room, including many Qinquan bags. Looking at the pile of things, Mo Tiange muttered to herself after a long time, "This guy turns out to be so rich." She always thought she was rich enough, but she didn't expect Qinshi to have more than her. Now that she thought about it carefully, it didn't seem strange at all. Before she existed, he was already a core formation cultivator, and he liked to go to dangerous places. When he was building his foundation, he and Jing Xingji discovered the ruins of an ancient sect. After he formed his gold core, he went to Demonic Mountain, and countless cultivators died in his hands. Coupled with the sect's offerings and the gifts from Lord Taoist Jinghe, his accumulation was much higher than his cultivation consumption. Living more than 100 years longer than her, he really didn't live in vain. Qin, she had already sorted out the important things and put them away. Mo Tiange looked at them and put away several marked Chinquan bags first. Then, she poured out all kinds of things in the Chinquan bags, including high-grade magic weapons, rare materials, high-grade panaceas, high-grade spirit stones, and other valuable things into her Chinquan ring. Then, she opened her own Chinquan ring and did the same. After doing this, she called Shui Linbo with a voice transmission. As soon as Shui Linbo came in, she was almost blinded by the light. However, she only took a glance and said respectfully, "Auntie, what can I do for you?" Mo Tiange pointed to the things that occupied half of the cultivation room and said, "Open a stone room, sort these things, and put them away." "Yes." Without hesitation, Shui Linbo put these things into the Chinquan bag and went to open a stone room. The location of Qin Shi's Immortal's Cave was remote. The exit was on an uninhabited hilltop, and a stone path was opened inside the Immortal's Cave, leading to a canyon on Clear Spring Peak. This canyon was extremely deep, surrounded by cliffs and uninhabited. Mountains and rivers fell around it, forming a waterfall that washed the bottom of the canyon into a deep pool called the Extreme Abyss Pool. Because of its special location, this pool was extremely cold. Huge chunks of ice floated on the surface of the water and didn't melt all year round, just like the northernmost land. After Shui Linbo arrived, she rearranged the exit leading to the Extreme Abyss Pool and built a wooden cloister next to the Extreme Abyss Pool, which was a good place to view the scenery. Shui Linbo was born by the sea and liked water by nature. She also chose a water attribute cultivation technique, so she usually cultivated in the wooden house. After receiving Mo Tiange's order, she opened several stone rooms near the Extreme Abyss Pool as a collection room. After doing all this, Shui Linbo came back to report to Mo Tiange. Mo Tiange went to take a look and was very satisfied. She set up formations and restrictions in each collection room and closed the collection room. If there were no accidents, the four of them would all leave the mountain, so it was inconvenient to hand over the collection room to others. After doing this, news finally came from Kuanzhong City. After summoning the two of them to Blue Phoenix Peak, Lord Taoist Miaoi went straight to the point. Senior Marshal Brother Jinyang sent a message. The two of you will go to Kuanzhong City to replace Senior Marshal Brother Huayan and Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi. You'll leave in half a month. Senior Marshal Sister Miaoi, what's the current situation? Qin, she asked when he saw her frown. Lord Taoist Miaoi said, Kuanzhong City is fine, but Demonic Mountain suffered a small loss. The most important thing is the Eastern Sea. We can't transfer people there right now, so Fairy Fengqing is in charge for the time being. She said, if I'm not mistaken, you'll most likely be transferred to the Eastern Sea if you go to Kuanzhong City. Mo Tiange nodded. It would be best if they really went to the Eastern Sea. As a guest elder of Bishuan Court, she knew Bishuan Court was in trouble, so she should go and take a look. In addition, you'll take 6 core formation cultivators and 100 foundation building disciples with you. Miaoi paused and said, my disciple Fei Shuang will also go with you. If you have time, please take care of her. Mo Tiange was stunned. The Fei Shuang Lord Taoist Miaoi mentioned was Wu Fei Shuang, by Yin Fei's Tao companion, Senior Marshal Sister Wu. After marrying by Yin Fei, she hadn't left the mountain for 100 years. Miaoi sighed and smiled bitterly. She's 200 years old. She can't afford to delay any longer. Mo Tiange understood what Lord Taoist Miaoi was implying. Bai Yin Fei was Lord Taoist Jinyang's disciple and had a single spiritual root, so the possibility of him advancing to the nascent soul realm was very high. As his Tao companion, how could Wu Fei Shuang not even reach the core formation realm? Unfortunately, this senior martial sister Wu was willing to be a virtuous wife, so Lord Taoist Miaoi worried a lot about this disciple of hers. This time, Lord Taoist Miaoi probably made up her mind. Otherwise, if she grew older and reached 300 years old, the possibility of her advancing to the core formation realm would be very low. At that time, what status would she have in by Yin Fei's heart? Mo, Tinga said, "Rest assured, Senior Marshall's sister. Just leave it to us." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.